Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. All right. It's Sunday, the 27th of October. And in 3 more days, I'm going to make another run around the sun here. I'll be 67 years old. Son of a bitch, it's getting quick. And you know the sponsor to this show, the title sponsors Onyx Hunt, Gunner Kennels, W Supply, Garmin, Canine Athlete, Mossberg, Boss Shot Shells, Purina Pro Plan, Walton's, Marshwear, Arxis Boots, 4-Wheel Camper, which I will tell you is completely loaded. Right now, I spent the whole day, long story short, which I never have a short story long, I spent the whole afternoon getting my truck loaded to go to South Dakota. Can't wait to get there. I'll be going to White Lake Hunting Lodge with a bunch of patrons, with a bunch of friends. It's just it's a literal hootenanny. And everything that I have, from my Marshwear, my Walton Spices, my Purina Pro Plan, my Boss Shot Shells, my Mossberg shotgun, I'm going to shoot the 940A. And it's funny thing is, like, I'm a double gun guy. And Mossberg does not have a side-by-side. They got over-unders. When I go out west, I shoot a gun I got when I was 50 years old. My wife said, what do you want for your 50th birthday? And I wanted an AYA shotgun. And I got that, 16 gauge. Love that gun. But I'm bringing that along with my Mossberg 940A. And the reason is, when we go to this lodge, it's pushing, blocking, flanking. You need 3 shells. I mean, you don't have to have 3 shells, but it's nice to have 3 shells. So I'm going to shoot the crap out of that. And then when I go by myself with my dogs, I'm going to shoot my AYA. And of course, my dogs are going to be, having Canine Athlete, Canine Pro, Hydrate and Recover in their food. W already sent me my collars my last trip for my dogs. I got all brand new shiny collars on there, no chew marks. Gunner Kennels loaded in the truck. The Gunner Kennel food crates loaded in the food truck. The food truck. Boy, you can tell I already had about 4 Miller Lights. I got all my food loaded in the Gunner food crate. I've got my Boss shotgun shells loaded. I have a complete spice box of my Waltons. All right, when I get to White Lake, they're not going to need my Walton spices. But when I hunt my way back home with some friends, we'll be using the Walton spices, and you can't find better. I'm going to be wearing Marshwear. I'm going to look like a walking billboard for Marshwear. I'll wear my Arxis boots where it's wet. When I don't, I wear my Mindles. Did you see what I said? Mindle? Yeah. Well, they're not a sponsor, but I love their boot when I'm walking the uplands. When that's wet, I'm wearing Arxis boots. And that is from the old, Jack Butler, Gumleaf. Now Gumleaf is gone, and Arxis boots are here. And I'll tell you what, they got more selections, more models, more versions. I love them. And I'll be sleeping in my 4-wheel camper. Not when I'm at the lodge. No, I'll be in a nice little comfy bed in the lodge house. But on my way out there, I'm going to have to sleep because I'm not leaving till Monday afternoon. So, of course, somewhere in Iowa, I'm going to have to stop the truck, pop up the top, and jump up into my 4-wheel camper and sleep in cozy comfort without having to get a motel. Have I got it all? No. You know what else I wanted to tell you? All right, we just got done editing. Matt got done editing the Hunting Dog Podcast trivia game we did in North Dakota, where this is the first trivia game that anybody has ever had a dog a dog, a canine. His name is Boss, coincidentally. And Boss is going to play the trivia game with me. You have to go to the YouTube channel, Hunting Dog Podcast, and look for the North Dakota trivia game where Boss shows up. It's amazing. I mean, even with, front paws, no thumbs, he was able to keep score, but we had some really good questions. Because how often do you get to ask a dog questions about how the hunting trip was going, how their handler's doing, how their owner's doing, how the birds are flying? You have to watch this. I'm telling you, I don't know what else to tell you except go to the Hunting Dog Podcast channel, YouTube, and find the North Dakota trivia game. Because if you don't like that, you don't like hunting. All right, that's it. I love you guys. I love you girls. Here comes the episode. What this is Jennifer Broome, who I've become well acquainted with, wrote a book last year called Mastering Canine Communication. I hunted with her and Mike Lardy a year and a half, or over a year ago, in the UP of Michigan, hunting grouse and woodcock. We almost got to, do that again this year, but the schedule didn't work out. But I wanted Jennifer to come on. She's been training dogs for a long, long time. And I've said this many times. I gotta say, women are better trainers than guys. Maybe not better statistically, but if you took somebody who was going to take something serious and say, okay, I'm going to apply myself, well, I'm telling you, I've seen enough hunt tests, I've seen enough big tests. Women knock it out of the park, and there's a reason for it. And we go into some real details, from her favorite first dog for a person to own to everything she's done with the versatile world, the lab world, even her little cocker called Betty Cocker, best cocker spaniel name ever, Betty Cocker. And we did this on a Zoom room last Thursday night with my patrons. So there's going to be a couple parts that might be a little, somebody talked over somebody. But Jennifer did a great job, and if anything would encourage you to come on and be a patron, it would be knowing that Jennifer promised to come on 2-3 times a year at least and talk with my patrons and talk about training and talk about everything from pen-raised birds to transferring to wild birds and her dogs, being competition dogs, even show dogs, and still hunting them. It was just such a great episode. I shouldn't say never. I will say never. I've never released a Zoom room on a podcast because it's mostly about 30 of us just kind of talking over each other, laughing. We ask some questions. We delve into some situations. But because I don't have a moderator and we don't have the hand thing up, but this one I think is worthy of listening to. And if you don't like it, well, there'll be another one next week. I'm going to be in White Lake, South Dakota. We'll do a couple of podcasts from there, and I will see you guys all soon. Or you'll hear me all soon. If I won't see you, I'll see a couple of you. Love you guys, love you girls, and love you patrons more.
Got my first short hair.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It went through the NAVDA system. Well, I went through junior, senior, master hunter with her for pointing dog stuff, then went through the NAVDA system and went to the Invitational. And right now, currently, I'm getting into horseback trials with my short hairs, with the goal of dual champion, because I show them also. So, and Betty Cocker. So, I love my flushing dogs and I love my my short hairs, my pointing dogs. But I've been a professional trainer specializing in hunting dogs for people. I've been hunting since I was 8 years old, and grew up hunting the eastern shore of Maryland with my dad for Canada goose. Moved up to Rhode Island when I was 17, 18 to go to college, have a degree in wildlife biology and management, specializing in waterfowl. Worked for the state, worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, realized I didn't want to do that. And I was training dogs on the side. And back in 90, 98, 99, turned it into a full-time career.
So that's what I remember when not because of you, but I think it was because
how did I end up meeting you and Mike Lardy on the same trip? Because
I
uh,
invited you out to come hunt with us.
that's right. Okay, that was
Yeah,
because
he's
yeah,
become like one of my favorite hunting buddies.
I remember because he went from the lab world guru of, and then he gets a German wire hair from Jeff Funky.
Yeah.
Like, the guy like talk about jumping off of one boat and going into the other world, you know. And so I got to meet
You
Jennifer
know,
the
you know
first time
stuff.
last year up in the UP, and Mike Lardy was there, and a couple cast of characters of friends of theirs that hunted. Um, but I have a couple questions. You know, I always find that people are like, oh yeah, I got a question. If you have a question, just I don't have the raise the hand, and I don't have a moderator here. Normally we constantly talk over each other, and it's usually just we don't care. I have a couple things I wanted to ask you that I think pertain to most of us here. And then if people have questions about, we got a young pup, like a 10, 12-week old pup here. Um, you can ask Jennifer questions. But this is something I've been at it for, I don't know, 40 years, let's just say, right? I mean, more than 40, but 40 years of having dogs. And ever since I got this little cocker breed, I keep comparing. Got it. See, I'm getting better at that. I can find who's talking.
There you go.
I don't know if it's the breed, and I don't know how labs are. I've never owned a lab, but I feel like I could take this little cocker out. She has no woe training whatsoever. Shame on me, right? I could not stop her to save my soul, but I could take her out of the box. I could take her out of the truck and go shoot birds over her because there's no runaway part of her. I'm not worried about the point. The range seems to be built in. And then you go to a pointing dog, and it's like it feels like if you don't put like brakes and turn signals on them these days, because I had my first short hair that was kind of like my first cocker. I was like, I don't know. I just opened the door. She hunts across me or me and two people or me and three people. She retrieved birds. She pointed bird. Like I didn't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem like I don't know if those dogs are out there anymore. Would you say that the flushing, and I don't even know if I should lump them flushers and labs because a lab is a specialist, but it's definitely a flushing dog. Are they easier for a novice to get into hunting with, or is that just my imagination?
So again, understanding and kind of respecting the fact that it's gone 30 years of doing this. And if you ask me what my favorite breed is, it is a Labrador Retriever.
Mhm.
They are the right breeding. They're the ultimate family companion. They certainly have more of an off switch than your German breeds. There's a little bit of can do it all in them. You know, I do call them flushing dogs. They love to retrieve, obviously. But I recommend most people get a Labrador Retriever. If they're new to hunting and they're new to getting a dog, a lab's going to be one of their best ways to ease into it. Just is.
How hard is that? Like, how much research do you think a person could do? And let's say a normal, intelligent person that's not impulsive, to find that lab because of all the, I would say, the high energy. There's a lot of labs out there that are really hot, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to be the lab for the first time lab owner, or would it be because they would not start attacking the field trial world or the testing world?
Even the higher speed, more intensely bred, if you rein them in and you really work on their foundation and their manners and being a house pet, they have the most incredible off switch. They really do. The ones that can really get crazed and high as a kite they have the great genetics anyway. And people just are so enamored by the fact that they just retrieve incessantly and they just keep snowballing. I think the demeanor of these dogs where they just don't have an off switch. It's just Let me go outside and throw tennis balls. Let me go outside and throw things. And then the dog just gets crazed. So even with hot genetics and high level genetics, I mean, my dogs, I've got 3 dogs here that are all out of Mickey that 2016, I think, no, 17, 18, whatever, national champion. I forget what year it was, 19. Um, and this national field trial champion. I mean, they're all downstairs zonked, and they'll come upstairs and hang out with me, and they're not high as a kite, and they have an off switch. But um, noise and a little bit of craziness can be a big factor with some of the real highly intensely bred, but you just stay away from it a little bit, or you go meet the parents. You go look at if there's a breeder, trainer who has specific genetics, or you want to get a dog. I always just say, go visit, go look at them, go see what it is, that's out there. Go meet the dogs.
So meet the breed and the breeder.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I don't want to say dabble because you went all the way to the invitational, so that's a little more than dabbling in NAVDA. But I think where NAVDA has suffered is somebody does it, somebody talks about it, and then they go get a pointing dog that's got, I want to say, not a balance of cooperation and desire. And I just don't, I guess I don't know. Do the lab people struggle as much as the pointing dog people do? I mean, if you were just, on a even, if you could make an even playing field.
I think a Labrador Retriever in general is just a more cooperative. It's not that I think. I've had the incredible opportunity to train thousands of dogs, thousands, Labradors and short hairs and all different sporting breeds. I love my short hairs. I love my German dogs, but they're hard-headed. They're hard-headed dogs for the most part. Even my first short hair that I brought to the Invitational, she in general was a more cooperative dog, but you couldn't force her to do something. You had to kind of prove to her why it was done this way, and then she gave you 150%. Labs take pressure better, don't necessarily need as much pressure, don't necessarily need as much convincing at times. I think they're just have a higher level of trainability in general. And again, I'm not digging German dogs because I love them.
Right. I
So
know you wouldn't have loved them if you didn't spend $35,000 to try to save one's life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Thank
yeah,
God for
love them.
thank God for pet insurance, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So if we could break into a third, then the cocker craze that's out there. I fell for it, and I don't want to say fell for it. I love my first one to pieces. I love my second one to pieces. And both of them have one thing that like took any pressure. Like I would still hunt them with a collar and a bell on, but I almost feel like I don't even need, like, they're just not going to leave me, right?
They're not. Yeah, they're not.
I mean, it might be a deer chase, maybe, but it's not like they have the idea that they also might genetically be able to get that deer's neck in their mouth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will tell you this, I've raised cockers for people. I've trained cockers for years. I knew I wanted a spaniel. And I went and got Betty Cocker a year and a half ago. And she comes from high genetics. I mean, her sire is bred by Jordan Horak of Cato Boards. Jordan. Great dog guy, great dogs, incredible genetics. And the dam is out of Davis Brewerton in Georgia, and he placed third at the Cocker Nationals last year as an amateur. Betty drives me crazy. If Betty was in here right now, she would not freaking sit still. So I do tell people, like, the energy of a cocker is incessant. Now, she's not 2 years old yet, and typically between 2 and 3, they'll start to wane and calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
But she completely reverberates. And my short hairs in general can be more pacey. We just hear them pacing up and down the house. But a cocker is just up you, down you constantly. They're I don't know if yours is like that, but mine's incessant.
I'm kind of in a best of both worlds. I have the kennels are all inside my recording studio, or the recording studios inside the kennel. But when I do let her out, there is this ridiculous pinball game going on with her for a few minutes, right? I mean, it's chair, table, bench, chair, table, bench,
Yeah.
table, chair, bench, bench, table, 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 bench, bench, chair. Bench. I'm like, stop it. And
Yeah.
like, get outside. And then she goes and chases the big dogs and wrestles a little bit. And then she comes in and she's like, oh, okay. But it's, but again, I'm not like, if I had her in my house, like my wife would probably like, no, no,
Yeah.
she's
They have
not.
a neurotic energy. They
Yeah.
have that it messes up like my whole inner peace. If I'm outside, if I'm training dogs all day long and I'm working really hard all day, and I want to come at the end of the day and I just want to chillax and hang out with the dogs, which I love to do, and cuddle with them and hang out with them. I mean, Betty's just like a pinball, like you said, and
Yeah.
I can make her go to place, and her tail just. Um, it's what I want for the field, but again, I'm hoping that she turns 2 in December, into December, that as she's coming between 2 and 3, that she will wane off. And we've seen it. Everybody's even commented she's calmed down some, about 3%.
3%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the lab would be the choice for somebody who gets, and like I said, I'm going to go back to NAVDA. I feel like NAVDA's almost created a situation where either you want the highest, hottest dog from the VCs out there that is would you say it's if you everybody knows the name Clyde Vetter,
Oh yeah.
and he's, phenomenal dogs, phenomenal record on training, on testing. And I've judged a lot of them with new handlers that had them. And I was almost like, my God, you, is that, it seemed like too much dog for somebody who didn't know how to, like, none of us know how to train when we first get a dog. We're all kind of like, and it's like almost like the wrong thing to do. I'm kind of glad with your answer. Like with somebody like, yeah, but I want a pointing dog. Well, but you can do everything you really can do everything with a
So again, for instance, I'm a huge advocate of, I want the dog's health, happiness, and wellness priority. Then I want the person who owns the dog to be happy and pleased with their dog, which is typically a family situation, because my dogs are downstairs in their indoor kennel runs too, but they come upstairs, they hang out with us. We've got outdoor kennel runs, but my dogs are our house pets. When somebody gets their first dog in general, because I have dealt with this my whole career, I have introduced so many people to hunting and so many people to sporting dogs. And for instance, we have a Drothar right now, and he's this big, solid black dog. And he lives in a pretty fancy area of Connecticut, and he's 4 years old. And this dog is such a powerhouse. He can take the pressure. He runs through pressure. He's got a hard mouth. He's super intense. He's way too much dog for the owner, for the first dog. And the thing is that it's not the dog's fault. It was a new owner not understanding the intensity of this breed, and then the breed, the dog just snowballs. So, yeah, Clyde judged me at the Invitational. He was my field judge. And I was just out at the Purina VIP event with him back in August this year, when the Purina has you out at that. And we were chatting for a while, and I do love his sharpshooter dogs. There's a reason I typically will not sell my short hairs to a first-time dog owner.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry. You need to practice. You need to drive a minivan or some type of a Buick before you get that sports car. And it's only because you have too much dog. And while your heart might be there, if your dedication to teach training and then uphold an anal standard, a really, really high standard, the dog takes over. And so all the dog's genetics just get compounded, and it becomes problematic stuff. So I think that there's a lot of high-level dogs out there being bred, sold to the wrong people who are in today's society, like stuck on their phones and stuck at their jobs. And these dogs are expected to be family companions, house pets. If they're lucky, weekend warriors. How many times a season do these dogs actually hunt versus you and me that, our dogs get to hunt so much they're tired from September through December, right?
Yeah, ideally, yeah,
Get
ideally.
tired.
Yeah.
And then, um, for me, the reasons that I compete with my dogs, first and foremost, it's for pedigrees because I like to put titles on dogs for their pedigrees, but it's not because I enjoy going to competitions. Oh, we lost you, Ron. Are you okay?
Oh, my refrigerator is right behind me.
Okay. So, for me training the rest of the season, I'm training to keep them physically and mentally fit, but then also to compete because the competitions are basically measurable goals. And it's reasons to get your ass off the couch and work your dog and do something with them because dogs of those genetics aren't satiated September, October, November. They need more than that, you
Yeah.
know? And if I, so, I don't know that we're breeding necessarily tougher dogs. I think at times it's a weaker mindset. I mean, the reason, and this is a good segue, the reason I reached out to Rick Smith now, like between 15 and 18 years ago, is I remember very emphatically, I was a big part of people's getting their puppy, helping them with the genetics, helping them raise their sporting puppy, part of the family, and a weekend warrior hunting dog. And there was this shift in society where the dogs were coming to me and they were biting me as puppies. And I mean biting bad. And it was around the time that like the kids, the ABCD system went out of the school systems and you can't, your teachers can't correct you anymore. It was like this shift in authority and the shift in authority of society in general. People stopped correcting their dogs for simple things like jumping. Instead of jumping now, you turn your back and give them a cookie. Well, as a trainer, that was very detrimental because you go to put a leash on a dog and the thing not only tries to bite you, but lands a bite pretty good. Stuff
Yeah.
they should have been whacked for as a puppy, things they should have been corrected for. So, um, the societal shift in dog training where it's so much positive reinforcement hasn't done any favors to these hybrid dogs.
Yeah. No, God, that's a mouthful. That's a
Yeah.
mouthful. You put your book out, and I had you on a couple months ago, and you're going to have a video to accompany it. And I
Mhm.
remember telling you, like, when I read your book, it's really nothing but basics.
Mhm.
I don't want to minimize it, right?
Right.
But like when you were describing a dog's action, I could picture it because I've seen it enough times. And that's why you said there's going to be a video accompaniment because even a new first time owner could read your book and go like, I think I know what she's talking
Yeah,
about.
it's technical. Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So, all right. See, I should have started with the goddamn lab.
And again, like I love my Labrador retrievers. And guess what? I like my black Labrador retrievers because of the stronger genetics of the dominant gene, and I only breed black Labrador retrievers. Um, I could make I could make comparisons of yellow Labrador retrievers that I see personality wise and chocolate Labradors. Um, and I like a smaller lab. My bitches are 43 to maybe 55 pounds at most. And the males might be 65 to 75 pounds. But, I don't want a 95-pound Labrador retriever or 100 and something pound. I want a super athletic dog that can go, waterfowl hunt, although I don't do that a whole lot anymore. And they're phenomenal in the upland. I just, I was on sharp tails with my flushing dogs and my German short hairs and then in the grouse woods, and I shot a lot of grouse over my two labs and my cocker. Um, so it doesn't just have to be a pointing dog. I can just tell you trainability, personality, adaptability to family life. Labradors are the best first choice for people.
Yeah.
If you can then be successful with a Labrador and you're ready for something more intense or hardcore, you then go to your next breed, but it's dipping your toes in a little bit.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you finding it though harder to find a well-bred Labrador, especially for health clearances?
Um, Honestly, no. but I think that people don't know where to look or get duped or all the crap that's on the internet. I'm a big fan of CHIC, the Canine Health Information Center. So I don't know if you guys, anybody out here is understanding of CHIC, CHIC, and that's part of the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals. It's part of their get up with the AKC, and so I'm a big fan of looking for every breed of the latest and greatest genetic tests that we can do to test for, everything from the retinal detachments to EIC, CNM, which is central nuclear myopathy, exercise-induced collapse, hips, elbows. There's even a genetic component now that they've done with ACL genetic issues with them. So I believe that if you do the homework and you see on paper the best that you can do, that both parents have a CHIC number, which then that they've passed the latest and greatest updated per year health clearances, that you're much, much reducing your capabilities or your probabilities of having genetic issues. But the breeders have to be willing to do that. And if they're not willing to do that, then to me, they're not really conscientious breeders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding it. And I start out in lab world. Now I'm like you at a much smaller scale. I have a German short hair and a cocker.
Mm-hmm.
But I love labs, and anyone that I try and help them find a good lab. I mean, it's hard to find one with the health clearances, and then when you do find them, heck, it makes the high performance pointing dogs look like value dogs compared to what these the labs that have gone through all the tests are going for now.
$2,500 to $4,500 all day long.
Yeah.
Whoa, back that up. For a puppy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
And your dogs out of national champions are like $5,000 for a puppy.
I literally I thought $2,500 was the bar. I really did.
Nope.
The low bar.
Yeah.
The low bar. So
well, who was it? Was it Axel that asked the question about the genetics?
Troy.
Sorry, Troy. Interestingly enough, when I knew that I wanted to get a cocker, I know some really great notables that are great friends of mine. Dan Lusson is a Springer and Cocker guy from New York, and then Jim Keller of Wild Wind Kennels in Maine, and both, again, national caliber spaniel trainers. And Jim Keller gave me some really great information because the cockers were new to me, and he said, Jen, make sure you do the genetic test, or you check for the genetic test, because cockers have a self-mutilation gene. And I was like, what? And he's like, they actually have a genetic component of self-mutilation, and a puppy will chew its leg off. And I'm like, oh, bad hips, you could do surgery. Imagine your 4-month-old puppy chews its leg off. It's actually, I could look the name up of it, but it's a self-mutilation gene. And it's sure enough, it's something that you test for. So the reason that I like the CHIC, the Canine Health Information Center stuff, is the Canine Health Foundation is constantly looking into each breed and what are the genetic tests that they can do to rule out these crazy problems in the breeds. So, unfortunately, epilepsy can't be tested for, and yes, that can be problematic. I had an epileptic lab. Ron, have you ever seen German short hair with what's the horrific skin disorder that they get? Do you know what?
Not coming to mind.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that we actually genetically test for, and it's like their skin sloughs off, So I believe as buyers, just like if you're going to buy a new home and you do everything from the radon testing, to the rodent testing and the roof and everything else, that a dog is not just a dog. And just because it's a cute puppy, we really want to look at the genetic components of it. And I know plenty of friends, breeders, good notable dog people are like, I don't really do that stuff. And I'm just like, then I'm not going to get my heart broken and spend $2,000 on a puppy that's going to potentially have bad hips or is going to chew its leg off. Count me out.
Oh, yikes. I honest to God, I did not know. I swear to God, I did not know that a puppy could cost that much money. I
Yeah.
literally. Now, I'm not saying that some designer breed doesn't cost that much money, because somebody will charge that for a an English bulldog, but that's not our world. But I did not know. I
A
did.
client of mine just this week is dropping $5,000 on a field golden retriever because it's out of Stanley Steamer, one of the all-time great golden retrievers of the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right, I got a couple more questions, and then people can ask questions. Um, and this is just two things that I filtered today through my podcast. People write me. They either write through the Upland Institute or they write through the Hunting Dog Podcast. Sometimes it's these. I don't think these were Patreon questions. And this guy wrote, "What do you do with a dog that doesn't point?" Now, it's a pointing dog, right? And from working with Justin, he doesn't worry about that early on. He just doesn't. Now there's a few techniques, there's a few training drills you can do to try to get them to go, oh, if I point, like with a launcher and stuff. Would you just, if you weren't seeing, whether it was a retrieving dog, or let's say a lab, or a pointing dog, if you didn't see the one trait that's part of their name, like Labrador Retriever or German Shorthair Pointer, if you didn't see that in the first 12 months, is that a red flag, or would you just work on other things and hope, like, does that genetic light turn on, or is that an indicator like, yeah, I might.
Let's break down a couple in terms of Labrador Retriever, any of your retrieving breeds, from any of your retrieving breeds. There's, from flat coats to Chessies to golden retrievers.
Right.
Puppies was one thing, because my lab puppy out of a national champion grandfather, she didn't show interest in her first bird till she was about 4 to 5 months of age. And I was freaking out. Like, she showed no interest in chasing a quail. She was almost a little repulsed by him, would just turn and walk away, And then all of a sudden, at like 4.5 months, and I was very careful, and I only did it like every 2 weeks, and I worked on prey drive with pulling it away. And all of a sudden, she pounced on it, and the light bulb came on. I get that happening all the time. We don't, at the kennel that, where we are on the East Coast, and people bring us their dogs, we get breeds, all different breeds all the time, that have no great genetics on paper. I mean, they have nothing. They have no titles to their name, or from show dogs. And so when it comes to a retriever, they ultimately have to show some type of a prey drive. They have prey drive for a tennis ball, prey drive for a bird, prey drive for something thrown, because with the prey drive comes the retrieve. There's plenty of retrievers who won't retrieve. Usually that's a trained thing, whether they run, they grab it and they run away. That's just a trainability thing. Or they play keep away, or they run over to it, they kind of possess it, but don't again retrieve and bring it to you. That's a trainability thing. That's no problem. That comes with the conditioned retrieve, which I don't call the force fetch. I call it the conditioned retrieve, because it's very much a training process, not a forcing process. But if you have a sporting dog, a flushing dog, a spaniel, a retriever that doesn't show prey drive, by the time it's 12 months old, you're kind of screwed. Okay.
Yeah.
You might just want to spend your time after, because me as a trainer, because I get to see this all too much, it makes me hate my job. I'm beating my head against a wall, and I'm like, okay, all my own personal dogs are sitting on my dog truck because I'm working client dogs who don't even want to chase anything. Right. So that's a game changer for me. Not pointing, what is point? It's a precursor to a pounce, right? Ultimately, it's a stop precursor to a pounce. So if a pointing dog still shows a high level of prey drive, then it just becomes your training to take away chase and work in a scent cone and start flushing birds so that the bird teaches them that, they'll stop. But genetically, the point's either there or it's not. You can't force a point, but you can certainly nurture it, and you can work on taking away chase very, very tactfully and cleverly with pen raised birds, better so on wild birds.
Yeah.
We've got two Weimaraners in training right now. Neither of them came from any genetics. One is a total failure. They didn't necessarily care if he was going to be a hunting dog or not. And we were like, yeah, he's not. And the other one, we're finally in week 6 of training, and her light bulb just came on this week, and she just even showed interest finally in a bird. She was completely spoiled rotten in her home life. She's only 8 months old, but she wasn't crated. She was so enabled. She was so nurtured. She didn't want to work for anybody. So going back to the question, if you're talking by 12 months, if the dog is taking out birds, then look at that pretty dog. Then to me, that's a trainability thing. The prey drive's there. Now we gotta nurture and work on the point, with a lot of tact going into that and training techniques. And often those dogs get very much rewarded for chasing. They get a thrill out of chasing. And in fact, Mike Lardy will tell you if he had to do it all over again, he let his German Wirehair Yana run the woods like around his place, just chasing deer and chasing things for almost the first year of her life.
Wow.
Well, he's got issues because of that. She's a phenomenal dog. I love his dog, but she still would love to catch everything that she points. And she does have a flaggy tail, and she's convinced that she's going to catch it, because we also, unfortunately, have to train as trainers way too much on pen raised dumb birds that the dogs can catch, and they know they can.
You said something about like throwing too many tennis balls. You're kind of saying, I don't want to throw Mike Lardy under the bus, but by letting that dog just run and chase, you didn't do it any favors. And
he didn't. But what's interesting is that couple things I'm going to lead into. We're also used to the Southern Circuit as retriever trainers when we're down there. You get the people with their pointers. They don't even call them English pointers and setters. And, our friends down there who have these all age, high level, 1 to 3 hour horseback dogs, they let their puppies run the woods, the piney woods of Florida, Georgia, her whole first year, and they let them run the prairies. And they do ultimately let the birds teach them, and they let them bump and chase, and they'll even let them catch. There's so much more pointing desire in those dogs, because those dogs are they don't care as much about retrieving. Our German dogs are killers,
right,
and they love to catch and kill.
Right.
So the problem that I think a little bit that Mike had, it was honestly hearing from the Southern guys of, no, just let her develop. Well, she got just as much of a needle in her vein drug of chasing deer and rabbits and bumping things, and it became a habit of hers, So there is a fine line between letting them do too much of that. If that is so rewarding for a dog, that they're busting things, you have to be careful with that too. Now, one other thing, I was friends with Ken Alexander of the Coverly Kennels many years back, and he sold the place, and I had done some early training with some of their dogs. Do you know Ken Alexander? Right in his. Do you know the Coverly Kennels?
I've heard of them. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
They've been around.
They're the old hemlock, big English setters.
Yeah.
He basically kept them almost in his kennel areas and didn't put them on birds till they were 2 years old. 2 years old. Now, I trained a bunch of them, and they were goofy beasts. Goofy beasts. They were like a Muppet. They're huge. My friend Dennis had one. He just lost it a couple weeks ago. Actually, you remember Dennis's big setter Muggsy last year? Yeah. So Muggsy was one of them. Super duper slow to mature. They're called the gentleman shooting dog. They're slow and methodical, but Ken Alexander didn't really start doing training with them till they're 2 years old.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's like not putting your kid in school saying, you know what, he'll learn more in the backyard.
Yeah.
Which maybe for one kid it would work.
Yeah.
Most of them, they need some structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had one guy bring a decoverly dog down to us Coverledge's not too far from where we are.
Hmm.
His dog wanted to join the chapter, want to see, he wanted just to look, see. He brings his dog, and I'm all hyped up. This is going to be a great dog, the Coverledge. No, it just, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
That dog, I thought somebody maybe hit him in the top of the head with a frying pan. There was nobody home,
I
nothing.
know.
The dog just
They really are. They're
Yeah.
big cartoon characters.
the guy-
Now, I shot my first ruffed grouse over at the Coverly Center, and I owned one for a very short period of time. Not my kind of dog, but my friend Dennis's. I mean, I've shot grouse over his dog too. They're just kind of through the woods, not quite Clumber Spanielish, but the Clumber Spaniel of the setters.
Well, but I know people that took a pointing dog to him and actually had quite a very nice wire hair and took it up to them and let them teach the dog, get it ready for the invitation, not for the invitation, for the NA. Well, the dog had never seen a pheasant, had never seen, and they said, "Oh, this dog is ready to go. It's top notch." I never saw, and I knew that dog before it went there. It was
Yeah.
really heading in the right direction. This was a good dog. Wasn't worth shit. There was nothing there. He ruined a good dog.
Well,
Cancel. Just eat it.
Ken Alexander has it. He sold it like probably 12 plus years ago.
Yep.
So was it
After that,
it was after that. Yeah. Yeah.
the new people aren't doing the name any justice.
Uh,
Sorry.
No, we're not afraid. We're not edited. We're not checked by anybody. This is just
we're not. Yeah.
No, this doesn't. I don't even have to edit that out. I don't think that's an inaccurate
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
But going to let's say the dogs that I'm gonna like turn it on its ear. I interviewed a fella in, I think it was North Carolina, whose wife ran a shelter. And she would tell her husband, she goes, "Hey, we just got a setter in. And it's 3 years old." And he was just a dyed-in-the-wool hunter. And he could take that dog who literally hadn't seen a bird in 3 years, but the genetics were there.
Yes.
And then all it took was that exposure. And he literally, he hasn't paid for a hunting dog in 20 years, right? His wife will say, "Hey, we got a setter, we got a Weimaraner," he said, "All right, let me give it a whirl." Now, obviously, if it didn't work out, it went back to the shelter and they tried to home it.
Yeah.
For some dogs, you could I've interviewed probably 3, maybe 4 trainers from England. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, at least the ones I mentioned, they do more yard work and less bird work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when they get everything good and the dog can heal off leash, they'll get the dog into a little bird pen, make sure it likes birds. But and I've told people this analogy so many times. Your dad didn't show you a Playboy magazine when you were 6, because he was pretty sure by the time you were 13 you were going to be finding them. I don't, not to take it away from that, but I mean, if the dog's genetics are there,
Yeah.
they could still perform
Yeah.
to a pretty high level of at least finding game, right?
Yeah. And the dogs, they're not e-collar people over there. And I got the opportunity to go hunt over in Scotland last year and got to watch some driven shoots where people had a lineup of spaniels and retrievers. None of them have e-collars. None of them had collars on, because those dogs have to sit and watch and be patient and get a whole foundation for upwards of 2 years before they get that needle in their vein drug of really getting to be predators. And it's funny, like you talk about England versus us, because I recall stories from like Dennis Voigt and Mike Lardy. There was a team from the US that went over, field trialers, and competed against field trialers in England. And the consensus with England is that Americans take their dogs much quicker up front and have them doing much more impressive stuff up front, but then it falls apart on the back end because it's so much thrown at them. Whereas the British dogs don't get as much exposure to birds. They get a whole lot of patience work and they're able to hold it together more. And I'll have to agree with that because I do see that. You know, they're not, I don't believe in the concept of holding a 4 to.
Oh, I think we lost Jen for a second.
Yeah,
Can you hear
she
me?
thought she lost you when you got a beer, but we really lost her.
Yeah. I only ducked to the refrigerator, but yeah.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
back.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
please,
ma'am.
it is stable. Okay, sorry. I am not in the mindset of, like I said, holding a puppy and holding it back and getting it all revved up and it's vocalizing and then you let it go. It becomes their muscle memory. So I work completely on patience and composure before I just start slamming them with prey drive stuff. For me, the prey drive stuff has to have rules. You know, early on it doesn't, you know, early on, but as soon as a dog shows me prey drive, I take the prey drive, I shelve it, I take that, and I then work on rules and found.
Oh, what do you have Starlink? Because my Starlink's working good, and I don't
Never
think
freeze up. That's so weird.
he froze up. So on that subject, you know, I sent you a copy of the Upland Institute, and something
Mhm.
that Justin does with every dog is what he calls what horse people call sacking the dog, you know, sacking a
Mhm.
horse or stacking the dog, and you know, getting it completely used to your hands and your touch.
Yep.
Because if the genetics are there, it's hard to introduce calm after you've introduced chaos,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it is.
Introduce the calm and kind of like friends of mine, Trent and Heather, they've got and they got this setter puppy from Justin. He only breeds every maybe 3 or 4 years when he, you know, and he's one of the breeders that he's not selling these dogs. They just go to friends, right?
Yeah.
And but he knows the genetics of these dogs. And this dog is 5 months old on Drummond Island and pointed her first grouse, shot over. But there's a part of me that cringed a little bit. I'm like, okay,
I'm not doing that.
you're introducing like you verified, yes, this dog is going to point and retrieve birds.
Yep.
But you're not introducing listening at all. There's no
You're
listening.
not. Yep. Self-employed. I call them 1099 dogs. They're self-employed.
So yeah, I took that approach with Tagus, and I got a little panicky before his NA test, although he aced that. And I've bitched about him. I think just genetically, I think his desire is on the low side of, like, I'm not going to enter him in any kind of a contest. But I did a lot of waiting to be out of the door, waiting to be fed, a lot of calming touch. And I could open these kennels up and I could snap my fingers and say, sit, and he sits.
Yep.
And that brings me joy.
Yes.
And then there's this little part of me that says, I should have just let him be a hooligan. But then I'm like, I don't know. Would he have? Because I can't live in a matrix. I can't live in both worlds. I can't go like, well, let's live in a world where I did this with him and I did that with him. But I feel like his desire is an inherited trait and prey drive is inherited. And I think if he turns out to be a mediocre hunter, I'm still going to be way happier because he's an absolute canine citizen. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't aggravate me. I don't spend any time yelling at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does Evan have there? Is that a little cocker?
Turn your speaker on, Evan.
Evan?
I'm trying to. He's a Springer.
Oh, he's okay. Springer's bigger. Okay. I was looking at
Yeah.
the little, yep. Nice. How old is he?
He's just, well, he turned a year in May, so he's coming up
Okay. What a
too,
what
but
a beautiful dog.
thanks.
Beautiful. How much does he weigh?
He's, last I weighed him, he was 48 pounds. So I think he's around 50 now, maybe just over.
Okay. Beautiful. Is this have you had spaniels before?
Yeah, I grew up with a Springer. He's my first kind of gun dog. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm used to Springers. I had another field bred. We just didn't hunt her at all.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice.
Thanks.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Canada. I'm in Alberta, Canada.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Very nice. I love the coloring on him.
Yeah, it's not typical for the field breds,
not.
but
It's not.
his sire throws a lot of color on his dog or his pups.
Yeah.
So
And have you had him out chasing birds yet, or what have you done with? Oh, you got another one there.
yeah, that's my brother's Great Dane. Not hunting dog. Yeah, we had him out last week for the first time. But we didn't get anything, so we're still. But it's funny because talking about the UK versus American, I've been working with a UK trainer, so I was just going to emphasize that you guys talking about how they don't expose their dogs to game till like way later. Because yeah, I was working with another UK trainer, and they almost. I exposed them to some pigeons at like 12 weeks. And when the trainer found out about that, you would have thought I beat the dog. He was not happy about it.
I'll tell you what, though, it does make me a little nervous of not exposing a young dog to game in general, just to show that prey drive. All I need to see is like that it's there, and then I shelve it, and I sort of. And for me, like when I have a litter of puppies, I don't care if they're my short hair puppies or retriever puppies, and I don't breed a lot. But I'll throw like a quail or a wing right into the whelping box, and then I'll take, you get the power of the pack of the puppies, and I'll get that prey drive from a young age just to see that. And then I'm like, okay, boom, it's there, it's ingrained, and I shelve it. But I don't do much training with birds. But it would worry me to not introduce birds because, again, the flip side in my profession, I've seen so many clients bring dogs to us that might be 2 years of age. Let's even say something silly like they live in New York City. They've been told no on pigeons. No, 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 on pigeons. And the dogs like don't want to chase a bird because a bird worries them. So for me, it's a fine line between screwing them up and letting them get bad habits around a bird, but then not exposing them. My analogy is sort of like people with water. People who like the ocean and like will jump in a pool in the deep end of the pool. It's pretty darn hard to teach an adult to swim.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And versus, if you're exposed to that as a kid, I grew up on the water and everything was the water, water, water. I've got a really, really good friend in the gun dog industry also, and he can't swim. And I'm like, how can you not swim? Like, how can you fish and and you can't swim? So that's the thing for me is I do like that early exposure because I feel like it just gets ingrained a little bit.
Yeah, I think when I did it, it was just I kind of want to see like, okay, he's got proven lines. I've been told he'll hunt, but it's like he's my first gun dog. I want to see if he'll actually react to birds, and he did. So
yeah,
but yeah, the trainer was. Well, I think I told you about this, Ron. It was Ben Randall.
Yeah. In fact, Evan and I showed up on a Ben Randall webinar one day, and all of a sudden there's a message. Hey, Ron, it's Evan.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Ben Randall at all?
No.
He has an online course, and he has a kennel in England, and he's got a pretty good following of people that come on a Zoom room and they talk training and everything. And then all of a sudden Evan was on there, and I'm like, well, I was on there too, just trying to just entertaining the flushing world. So I thought, well, it sounds like he's got some credentials, so I'll listen. But I want to go back to that. You said something, and I liked what you said. You said you shelf it. but do you bring it back a little bit as they're getting older to like, or do you feel like you've been at it long enough? It's like, no, I know the dog's going to do this, and I'd rather get the brakes and the blinkers installed on the motorcycle.
Yes, I do. Thing about Randall, that's his name, Randall.
Yeah,
Um, he also probably has the luxury of working with awesome spaniel genetics that it's there.
right, right.
My problem as a gun dog trainer for the public is that I get everything from rescues to doodles to we've trained German shepherds to hunt and you know every supposed gun dog. It's so funny when people fill out their forms for us and they're like, "Oh yeah, he comes from champion genetics," and we look at it, it's like all show champions. You know, we're like, "Yeah, this ain't gonna do shit of your show Labrador Retriever. He's not gonna care about it." So, it's just like introducing, like I said, the young person to the water at a young age versus adult. I just really like to mess around with prey drive. And the thing, like my personal puppy, I want to say I've been on videos in Florida this year. She was 2 months old when I got her. I maybe at 10 weeks, I put her on her first quail and she pounced and pounced and pounced and grabbed it and was super happy. Then in the consecutive weeks, I'd like once in a while when I was training, I'd show her a quail and she was like not really that interested. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna put this. And like I said, it was like 3 months, 4 months, and maybe I wasn't trying to overly stress about it, but I also am not used to having a dog personally with such good genetics that just doesn't show early prey drive. You know,
Yeah,
she showed it with a ball, but she didn't show it with a bird.
yeah.
And of course, like I knew it would all come together, but I was talking myself a head game and stressing myself out. I'm like, watch, my next superstar dog's going to hate birds. And so I'd be very tactful about it. I'd be like, I'd wait about 2 weeks. I would take her out and the bird would always like, it would be like a cat and mouse game. So I wanted her to like chase. I'd tease her with it. I wouldn't throw her at it. You know, I'd move it away from her. And again, it was like, she was almost 5 months of age when she finally like the switch went and she grabbed it and she was carrying it all around. And I want to say I did one more session with her and then I went, that's all I needed to see. That's done. You're now not on birds until I decide to again.
Now, do you take the same approach with your we've mentioned German dogs.
Yep.
And definitely pointers and I could almost say pointers and setters are different than German dogs, although they can do the nap and stuff. But if you had a versatile breed, would you take that same approach?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. Because it's for me, it's the whole predatory drive. You know, um, it would be really beautiful thing if all dogs hit the scent cone and locked up amazingly on point, but that's not the case. In fact, it's pretty cool when you get to see that. And sometimes they don't even know what they're doing. You know, it's more often than not, you get dogs that sight point initially to things, whether it's a cricket or a butterfly or whatever. You know, it's the difference putting the nose in. But again, I just want to associate the chase, the prey drive, the desire to chase, catch, kill, smell the predator to come out in them, and then I'll shelve it.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Hey, Ron,
There's
can I
so
jump
many-
in and ask?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, while we're kind of on this, we talked about the English not putting dogs on birds for 2 years. I don't train a ton of dogs, right? I train my own dogs, probably 5 over the last 10 or 12 years. And I know that a lot of people, including Ron, although he's very, very nice and doesn't usually say it, believe that you can, maybe try to push the dogs too hard too early. I agree with that as well. But I have tended to take my puppies and try to get them on a lot of birds, wild birds that they're not catching early, not really having a lot of expectations. I mean, I try to build in that framework so that they don't get themselves in trouble. But at what point do you worry about too much exposure, too much excitement, too much? Does that make sense at all?
Oh, it totally does. Is that what breed do you have there? I just saw a face. What breed do you have?
Sorry, I have German short hairs.
Okay, I can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
So, I don't. If my dog's got such a rush, my short hairs out of chasing, busting, I would probably reel him in. That would probably worry me some. Like so, if I was just out on the prairies and, I had my field trial short hairs out there, man, I had belly bands on them because they actually just got dropped off again because they've got trials starting again next weekend. And the last thing I needed them to do is undo their steadiness training. I think I would actually get a little worried just because of what I saw, like of Mike's dog, of these guys get so rewarded by chasing. It can really be hard to undo that. It really can. So,
on that chasing thing, it's kind of one of the standard ways, and you'll hear everybody, and I wouldn't say everybody, but certainly 60-70% people introduce their dog to Gunfire chasing a bird, which is kind of safe, right? He's distracted, he's focused on the bird, or she's focused on the bird. You shoot some shots. But what Justin told me, and I think he says it in the Upland course, is if it's a personal dog of mine, he introduces the gun just on walks, just as just a noise, because it can mean bang means go, right? Where the dog's chasing a bird and you shoot because you're working, and it's probably safe because you're going to introduce your dog to Gunfire while it's distracted. But if you do that too much, it also means gun means go. And if you want to set the dog up later, you taught it for so many months to go on a bang, right? And now you got to turn around and go like, hey, I didn't really mean go. I just wanted you to get used to Gunfire. So I'm going to ask Jennifer, how do you introduce dogs to Gunfire?
Yeah, so it makes sense what you just said and what Justin thinks, because it reminds me of like Pavlov's bell, where you ring the bell and the dogs start salivating because they know they're going to get fed. Well, I'm like, well, gunshot means birds and birds mean gunshot.
Nope, we lost you there.
So weird. Am I back?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're back. Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs mean birds, and guns mean
dogs mean birds. And I do like to have a dog. It says it's unstable again. Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. I do like to have a dog chasing, and in the height of the chase, I use a 22 blank in the opposite direction, and I use it in a cadence. Boom, boom, boom. I don't ever do once. Animals like cadences. I do it in a cadence. It could even be more. It could be 3 to 5. It's not just boom, because often the one time they might look up, and then now it gives you the factor to go, oh, they seem like they're sensitive. No, they just heard something different. If they're chasing hard enough and they're having a great time, then the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, that's how I like to introduce. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I do want gun to be a positive thing, but then Ron, I also teach retrievers to sit on a gunshot, and I teach my pointing dogs to stop on the gunshot. And that was incredible for when you were doing Master Hunter, particularly AKC Master Hunter, and even with NAVHDA stuff, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's not great for horseback field trials because if your dog's running a race, you don't want them to stop every time they hear off in the next field a gunshot. Right. But for the average dog, once they're conditioned to the noise, I love them to be aware that shot means stop. Shot means stop. And I'll do that even with, going to retrievers. And my short hairs love to retrieve. So throwing a bumper or a ball for them is a reward. But, you sort of do the traffic cop thing where you throw, you shoot, and they have to sit, and then you let them go do the retrieve. So I ultimately do a stop to shot.
That's interesting because
how do you achieve that? Because it's kind of hard to give a command and shoot at the same time.
So good question. Do you have pointing dog?
I do.
By their side. Because I don't want to scare them with the shot, and I don't even want to be that close to them. But I do it ultimately once I go through the whoa post training and I do the belly band. I will be letting them run through the field. I will shoot and then do a rolling stop.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I have a general idea.
Okay,
I couldn't.
So the belly band becomes the brakes. There's a sequence that I do with the woe post of teaching them how to stop with pressure on their belly, and then that gets overlaid to an e-collar. Dogs move away from pressure, so when the e-collar is on their belly in the belly band, it's a tickle on their belly. It stops their rear legs. It stops their hind legs.
Right.
So we do a lot of rolling stops with them of just working the field, traversing the field, rolling stop, rolling stop. And then it could be, again, they're at a distance. They're running typically laterally to me, maybe quartering toward. I don't necessarily do it when I'm not stuck, am I?
No, you're good.
Oh,
Okay, he was stuck. I don't necessarily do it if they're racing hardcore far away, but if they're going again laterally or perpendicular to me, I fire. I don't want to scare them because they've been conditioned already, and then I'll do a rolling stop. And pretty quickly, it becomes you fire and they stop. Now, you fire, they stop, then I'll throw them something. Could be a frozen bird, could be a fresh bird, could be a bumper, a tennis ball. It's something that they get to do a retrieve after with, but it could be a reward.
gotcha. Okay, thanks.
You got it.
Well, I'm going to open this up to, I had one other situation I was going to ask, but I think not that we're getting late yet, but does anybody have any specific questions for Jennifer? It's hard to, I will say it's like when somebody calls me up and says, Ron, my dog got a 3 in this. I'm like, I didn't see it. Is when you didn't see it, it's hard to do. But if you've got a question,
Dave has one.
yeah.
Couple questions back, you were talking about, I believe it was short hairs and them chasing. And you said you reel them in or bring them back or something like that. What did you mean by that? Because I've seen it if they're kenneled for like 3 days on the road, and then when you finally get out there and go to hunt, they're so amped up that they'll just start running and almost wanting to point the bird, flush the bird, and chase.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, I'll be honest, that I never personally wanted pointing dogs is that I'm in New England. As you guys joked, like all of New England can fit in some of your more Western states because our states are really tiny. I mean, I used to live in Rhode Island and you couldn't even hunt deer with a rifle. You had to hunt it with a bow muzzleloader or a shotgun because we're such a tiny state. I never wanted pointing dogs because I wanted to be able to see them. And being in the woods of New England, typically that's within 30, 40 yards, right? When I got introduced to German short hairs, I love the breed because to me, if there had to be one similar to a lab, just because of the retrieving desire, they were the next best thing. I did know that I didn't want a dog that's going to go run so far out of sight. So I do handling drills with my dogs. It's basically like a quartering drill where I do a complete foundational program of leash to e-collar overlay. Am I there?
Yeah.
Okay. So that I could stop them, send them, call them, turn them.
We're gonna start losing
e-collar.
the iPad if you
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So I can stop them, send them, call them with the e-collar. So, Dave, when I have my short hairs out, any distance they get to, or my retrievers, I basically cast my body in a different direction and will nick with the e-collar that it's a cue, it's a turn, I could use more pressure as needed. Well, I do the same thing with the short hairs. Ronnie Smith kind of taught me this neat trick. And again, it goes back to the belly band thing. So I do the belly bands on dogs for putting the rear brakes on. But if you have a dog I'm going to give you 2 tactics, one with the e-collar on the neck, one with it on the belly. If you get a dog that's just casting out in one direction and completely not paying attention to you, Rick and Ronnie will bring them to a rolling stop. They'll stop. You turn and you keep walking the other direction. And then when you feel like it, you call them. So basically, they got put to a rolling stop because they weren't hunting with you. You made them stand there.
Yeah.
Then you called them and they're like, oh, okay, that is it's an indirect form of pressure that works phenomenally. So direct pressure would be turn, nick them, and go. The indirect pressure is, oh, you're not paying attention. I'm going to make so I want you to pay attention. So instead, I'm going to indirectly make you stop, which then causes you to be more hyper aware that when I turn, you should pay attention. So if you have any type of a cue with your dog to be able to whoa them with the collar, that becomes a really great tool in your toolbox for training to stop them, because they're like, they go pretty like, oh my God, what do you mean you're making me stand out there at 200 yards? Well, you went to 200 yards, you're not paying attention. Now I'm going to go leave the scene. How about you get your head in the game?
You're the second person to tell me that, which reminds me that I'm part of the problem, because I've been riding in the truck too for 3 days. So I need.
No, well, I get it, but you know what? If I'm riding in the truck for 3 days to get out to go hunt Montana or North Dakota, and I let my dog out and they run so hardcore, they get themselves into a porcupine, or they go chase a mule deer, or they go bust every bird, that I was about to just go walk half a mile to go get, then I'm pretty pissed. So in one sense, I appreciate the fact that they've got a lot of pent up energy, but this also can be that tailgate training where there's plenty of times I do my tailgate training, which is get your head in the game. And I might make you go in the crate, come back down, in the crate, come back down, sit, whoa, get your head in the game, and then
That works.
It works really good. When I
turn around, walk back to the truck, handle them, get the other dog, and go.
Oh yeah. I did that a lot when I guided, because the dogs would be so crazed, and you get to a spot, they knew they were going to have a field of 25 birds, and I'm like, we're going to have a little bit of tailgate training for a few minutes, and you're just going to get some composure to you.
It's funny when Dave asked that. I probably told this story either on a podcast or on the Zoom room, but I was mentored by a couple of judges from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Dick DeCam was one of them. And he wanted to take me up to a spot. He did some grouse hunting, and I said, yeah, I've hunted in the same spot, just about an hour and a half from me. And this is my first German wire hair, who I hated, but he was a good dog, but I had no training. I was that person who was like,
Yeah.
But then, this dog finds a crippled bird that nobody else can find. And you love him so much that you ignore training, right? Because, I could bring him out of the truck, tell him dead bird, watch this, but the dog doesn't listen. And I'll never forget the lesson I learned. And this goes kind of back to the calming touch, doing more of that when they're puppies. Is I got to the spot, we're up near Baldwin, Michigan, and I made the obviously greenhorn error of, I just opened the kennel up and let him jump off the tailgate. And then he's running around the truck. He's running around Dick's truck. He's running around the woods, and I'm screaming his name. Esco! Esco! And so I'm like, I'm an apprentice judge, so I'm already like embarrassed, right? Because obviously Dick is judging me, And Dick's got a German wire hair, high energy dog. His name was Buford. And Dick, on one of the passes that Haskell came by, and I was trying to dive at him and grab him, because I don't even have his beeper collar on yet, right? I'm like, no, come on, let me get the collar on you. And he opens up his tailgate. His dog jumps off and starts to do the exact same behavior. And Dick says, Buford. And Buford sat. I was like, how the fuck did you do that? And then he proceeded to get his vest on, take his gun out of his case, get his shells in his pocket, put the collar on the dog. And I will say Buford was just as crazy in the woods as my dog was, but that enjoyment from the dog doesn't, to Dave's point, the dog doesn't have to take a 200-yard run right off.
No. In fact, that's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a real waste of energy. I'd rather have them be doing that energy hunting. So,
And and they can really wait,
yeah,
right? I mean, you don't get the button line at Disney and Orlando. You just go like, oh, I guess I gotta wait. Now
yeah.
you love the roller coaster just as much
You
as
haven't been to
everybody
Disney in a while. For $100, you can skip anything.
That's true. And I think that's the mentality. You're right. I think you hit it on the head. The goddamn amusement parks.
There is no easy button on a 5-month-old German short hair. It just doesn't exist.
You know,
Mango gets
But I want to
gets
see
the
that
wasted
short hair
energy.
pull the wallet out.
Yeah.
so one of my favorite commands, and I haven't taught my two short hairs now just because of their show career, which one is finished in the show ring and the other is halfway, and their field trial career. I taught my two previous short hairs, I'd say, lie down, just like that, lie down.
Yeah.
And that meant drop. And when I'd say lie down, they dropped so quickly. And what I loved about that is, whoa to me is like such a sacred word. If I say whoa, you better stop and you better not move a toenail. And so if I said whoa, I had to be in the mindset to like be on their case. And it's a lot it's a lot harder to stand still with 4 feet on, than it is when you have them to lie down. That just becomes so emphatic, lie down.
Yeah.
So lie down became my sit, because I also didn't make them sit. So sit was for my retrievers, but if you guys want to teach your dogs the lie down command, that to me, I absolutely love it. You're getting, and man, it's just like stop and drop. And that's it. You don't get to move again. It's a great command.
The people that have done NAVDA know there's a green book that NAVDA gives you when you join NAVDA.
Yeah, get the green book.
And in the last chapter, I don't know if it's in a new one. I don't have a new one, but I have one from 38 years ago. And in fact, it was in a plastic spiral bound. It wasn't even a glued unit yet. And Ed Bailey showed you how to teach the dog the down command.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pretty, because if it's a high energy dog, it's got to understand that I'm serious when I say it's like going to church when your mom says quiet and you're like, oh, she's mad. And he said, I never should have put the down command on the last chapter because nobody ever goes to the last chapter. And the one wire hair that I did a good job with Zygon, I took it to the limits. I could give him a down command in the field, and I could lower my fist, and as long as he wasn't too hot, he would go down to his belly. Now, if he wasn't hot, and it wasn't hot outside, his chin would be on the ground.
Yeah.
You go to that point, Jennifer, where their chin is on the ground?
Yeah.
And Ed Bailey told me up in Canada, he says, the reason you do that, if you can get a dog to go into down command early, you can walk away, and if their chin's up, you already know they're disobeying. Like,
sure,
they're already 1 degree of disobeying, because they're like,
sure,
they should be chin on the ground.
Yep.
And when you turn around, they're still on the ground. You're like, he's still listening, or she's still.
So the thing about the down command too is it's the ultimate in like the submissive position for them, because they're at the most vulnerable when the down command.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can really get your dog to do a lie down command in the field, anytime, anywhere, no matter what, it really just shows your level of control and their element of being subservient and being very, very obedient. Yeah. Now, from a dog trainer perspective, where I get biting dogs, I get dogs that challenge me, I get, these dogs don't want to lie down. It's one of the hardest commands to teach. So I have a great tactic to teach the lie down. When you try to force a dog to, and I have this quote in my book, the more physical force that you use, the less effort that they give. So I know that I can overpower dogs, but I also train horses, my personal horses, and it's all about touch and feel and getting them to choose to do the behavior, not because you're trying to force them to do the behavior. Because you can't force a horse. You have to teach them to politely lead. Well, when I took that mentality to dog training and I stopped forcing dogs, because I did in my early years when I was like definitely in my late 20s and early 30s, it was like, force them, force them, force them. Now it's like, no, the less pressure I use, the more effort that they try. So I get all these different breeds of different mentalities that they don't need a reason to fight with you. They get offended if you're in their face or trying to get them to lie down. So I don't try to force a dog to lie down, but instead I use a little bit of exhaustion and reverse psychology. So we use the Kuranda beds for our training, the Kuranda bed platforms.
I've
But
got
I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care if you use an LO bean bed, but use some type.
Oh, who knew that my guest would have the worst audio or the worst internet?
Yeah, usually it's you.
Yeah, I know exactly.
This is what we put up with, Ron.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back.
We were talking about the
Just remember,
Kuranda.
I do Zoom meetings. I'm sitting on the couch instead of at the table, so I wonder if that's it. I'll go move to effing table. Hang on. What a pain in the ass.
Leave it to Ron to make a woman uncomfortable. Have to go sit at the table.
Yeah.
I
I'm
told her.
uncomfortable. I'm just getting started here.
Told her.
So
Sit down. No, go
down.
You're
Lie
talking about
down.
you're talking about the Kuranda bed.
So I talked about a Kuranda bed. I could use a crate. I could just use like an LO bean bed, but it has to be some type of a destination, right? And I'm big into having a dog go. So go somewhere, come to me. Go somewhere, come to me. Well, ultimately, I want him to lie down on the bed or lie down in the crate. But instead of forcing it, I do the go and the come and the go and the come to me. So the send and the recall so many times that when they finally go to the bed, you know what they do? They just lay down because they're like, she's crazy. Like, she just made me do this 20 times. Then as they start laying down, I might apply a little bit of pressure, or that's good, lie down. And I'll name the action.
Yeah.
And then I make them get up again. So I sort of exhaust them so that they choose. They're like, you know what? I want to go to this bed and not come off. And I'm going to go to the bed and I'm going to lie down. Then I name the action. And now they've proven to me that in my presence, they can lie down. They're going to lie down. They chose to do it themselves. And then that's how I snowball that ultimately into a lie down command. But
I mean, that's a great point. I learned that with healing. People try to teach healing while the dog's pulling, and you're using the word heal, and what you're doing is naming pulling.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what you did is you didn't name it until you saw it.
Yep. It's like when I teach a dog.
How do you transfer that? Do you do that a lot of times? And then when you transfer it to the walk and then in the field, how do you transfer it to it?
Sure. So even like the stages of sending a dog to a crate, like, again, I have the luxury of getting to work upwards of 30 dogs a day and hundreds of dogs and hundreds of dogs. And they're also similar. So when you try to teach a dog to send to go away in a crate, and these are, untrained, unruly dogs, it first becomes a little bit of a battle, go in the crate. And ultimately they go in the crate and they rush out, and I put them right back in, and they rush out and I put them back in, and then they decide to stay in the crate, and then they go further at the back end of the crate, and then they sit at the back end of the crate, and then they ultimately lie down. And my mentality too is, how do you teach a dog to come? You teach them to go first. So I send them to the crate so many times that they're like, I'm not coming out of the crate. And I'm like, guess what you're going to do now? You're going to recall. So they bail. There's a sense of giving up, bailing out, exhaustion, game is done, that they lie down in the crate themselves, and they do the same thing on the bed. So again, if I can do 20 different repetitions of send to the bed, get off the bed, send to the bed, and when they choose they've had enough and they're exhausted and they lay down, again, I name that. But now I might start overlaying just a little bit of leash pressure to pull to the down position.
Mm-hmm.
And if they resist much, why I don't like to force that is, in order to get yourself in that position, your face is close to their face. So if they decided, and again, I deal with a lot of dogs that are spoiled and love to react and bite. I'm not putting my face next to a dog's face. I'll step on the leash so I could be upright and step on the leash. But if
Damn it. There you go. You're good.
Okay, so they choose to do it, and then I ultimately just start adding pressure, leash pressure. But usually it's the mentality to begin with them that they don't want to lie down because they don't trust you. They don't want to put themselves in that completely submissive position because it's scary.
Yeah.
They could die.
Yeah, I would tell you I think your method's probably a lot smarter because you're naming it after you're seeing it and then you're building on that. In Ed Bailey's version was you pushed the dog down and you took a ruler like a nun in a Catholic school and you smacked them on top of the head. And when their chin came up, you smacked them again. And pretty soon they're like, well, fuck, if I leave my head down, I don't get smacked on top of the head. But with a dog that's forgiving and training, it worked great. Like it only took a couple little smacks on the top of the head, right on that little, that little hard bone. But I would go with your method because most of these dogs would not handle that.
So I'm not against correcting. So once I did teach a dog to lie down, I would correct for them trying to get up. Like I don't have a problem with that, but I don't try to teach with correction, teach with corrections or teach with force, because the more pressure you use, like the pressure you use is the pressure you'll need. That's another thing.
That's true. That's true.
So if I have to force you to do things initially, I've just learned through the horse training and I've learned through experimenting with enough hundreds of dogs that I wear them down with repetition and they say uncle. And with that repetition, they learn, then I hold them accountable. And I'm not afraid to thump on them, but I'm not thumping on them as part of the training process, because if they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah. That goes back to when I met George Hickok. It's like dogs learn everything by association.
Mm-hmm.
If they learn it and then you name it, then you could correct it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're teaching them with just correction, they're probably like, what the fuck are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit. Now, can I do that with a cocker? Because she's such a little baby.
Oh, my cocker was having a little bit of shit fits tonight. It was opening day of woodcock, and she whapped herself with a branch out there and gave a huge squeal. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought she hurt herself. Then she did it a second time. Then I corrected her for not listening with the collar. Then she wanted to heel by my side. They are sensitive little shits, the cockers, and you do have to be careful, but I still have a pretty high standard for her. And I'm like, you will take corrections and you're not gonna bail out. And even I was walking through the woods tonight when she was sort of bailing out at my side thinking,
it's going to make the worst podcast ever. I can't get these. I'll have to edit.
I'm frozen again?
Just for a second.
Okay. I can't believe this again. Sorry.
That's
The
all right.
meetings. Yeah, something's up. Anyway, I was just saying about the cocker. She was showing me some attitude tonight with getting herself smacked by branches and taking it personally against me. And then when she didn't listen to me, I gave her a collar correction and she shut down a little bit. And I said, you're going to be doing some basic foundational stuff with the collar tomorrow.
Jesus. Yeah. I have not experienced that yet, but I'm sure I will if I ever try to train this thing. I think I might take the path of least resistance. Like, well, I've shot birds over her. She did really good. Maybe we should. Maybe no, that's a bad statement. I was going to say maybe we shouldn't train dog. I want to give everybody the opportunity. If you have, again, it's hard for Jennifer to try to steer something. It's going to be based on her years of doing this. If you have questions, please, put your hand up, or we're not doing a moderator, but otherwise we'll just keep talking about situational stuff.
Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions I could attempt to answer?
Yeah, Jennifer, this is Gary. 30 years of enforced setters. We lost 2 within 8 months, and it was devastating to my wife. And I was without a dog for a while, and she wanted something smaller and she wanted something different. So I went and I said, just pick something out, and as long as I can hunt with it and it doesn't have a doodle in its name, I'll be okay with it. And so we go to the dark side. So I go from setters to a flushing dog, and it's one of the lesser breeds. I have a field spaniel.
Wow.
And yeah, and so there's hunting lines on both sides and show confirmation. All the testing is good. She got good prey drive, but this is really different than training. And she's 10 months old now. I'm using place boards. She's got great prey drive. She's doing retrieving. I don't want to screw this up. Any quick advice from going from setters to flushing dogs?
I actually think that your retrieving breeds, your flushing breeds are in one sense easier to train than a pointing dog.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Okay, it's just a lot of
What little
foundation.
experience I have.
Yeah, it's just a lot of foundational training. And I love that you said that she's got the prey drive and stuff. Oh, I mean, it's 4 basic commands you want to teach all dogs. I don't care if it's a pointing dog, a family pet, or a flushing dog. You want to teach them to go somewhere, stop and be still, come to you and walk with you. And so that's the foundational stuff I'd be doing. I'd be doing it with place boards, platforms, crates, beds, sending her, stopping her, calling her, and then, casting her different directions. Has she had bird exposure yet?
Yes, a little bit before. She's been exposed to gunfire. I was in the UP a couple of weeks ago, and she didn't flush it, but a grouse flush. She was about 50 yards away. She found it and walked around with it and got really excited. So to me, and we weren't shooting over her, but around her. So she did get exposed to wild birds, but not as many as I had hoped to. We couldn't find woodcock in the UP. It was terrible this year for us. And I was over near Iron Mountain. I don't know what the hell the problem was.
Well, I just got back on Saturday night. I spent 8 days in Wisconsin. And then before that, I was in North Dakota, and I walked 8 days, upwards of 10 miles a day, and found 4 woodcock in 8 days. They just hadn't migrated yet. Yeah. So it's not you. It's been with everybody. So, what is it that you might be worried about? Because you're basically trying to teach her the foundational skills. It seems like she's got the genetics there. You've exposed her to birds. There's an element of twiddling your thumbs because she's only 10 months old and she's not going to be much, impressive till she's about 2. So it's about molding, nurturing, and shaping, obedience, making bird stuff fun. One thing you don't want to do for a retrieving breed is get into a habit of ever shooting a bunch of birds over them and not having them held accountable to retrieve it. So you want to do a conditioned retrieve program with her, which I do with all span. I do it. All my hunting dogs get a conditioned retrieve program. They must deliver a bird.
Yeah. She's delivering the bird now to the place board, but I'm using treats as a reward.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's a no-no or not, but she's bringing it back now. Before it was the victory lap, right? Now she's bringing it back to me. Can I continue to do that?
Yep, you totally can. Yep.
Okay.
If you want to email me, and I want to be able to, am I unstable again?
Yeah.
Am I here?
You're here.
Yep.
I'm so sorry. Ron, we can share my email, jbroome@QKDogs, but I'd be happy to share my program, my flow chart with pointing dogs and flushing dogs, just to give you an idea of the foundational skills that we like to do.
Okay. Okay. So first name at TK Dogs.
J Broome. So JBROOME at QQKDOGS.com.
Got it. Yep. Okay. I'll email you. Okay. Thank you.
Throwing my 2 cents. Sounds like I'm being sarcastic. Sounds like he's worrying about nothing.
Yeah.
It's coming from the one world to the other world.
Yeah. I mean, it's dog training is dog training. It really is. It's patience, persistence, repetition, and it's putting a good, strong foundation. go when you're told, stop when you're told, come when you're
Yep.
told, turn and walk with me, cast with me. And, spaniels don't necessarily need as much pressure. They can get their feelings hurt easily. And, if I said my Betty Cocker doesn't need an e-collar, she doesn't necessarily need an e-collar. One of my labs that I hunted with tonight doesn't really need an e-collar either. They're just the temperament of the dog. One thing I think I wanted to share with everybody that continues, here I've been in dogs for 30 years, and I get, I've traveled all over the country hunting and around the world, even doing some shooting. I'm still amazed at how much dogs learn every time you take and you introduce them to different states, different quarries, different covers. It's really easy to be like, well, what the heck? He was great in the, like, for instance, I thought my short hairs who have been on the field trial circuit in the East Coast, I couldn't wait to cut them loose on the prairies. They're 2.5 years old. I thought they were just going to be rock stars, right? They didn't know what the fuck to do. There was no edge and there was no objectives, because that's what they need in their field trials. They run an edge or they run to islands and objectives, and they're trained off a horseback. And you know what happens when you get off the horse? Usually it's because there's a bird right in front of you, or they also do retrieving stakes because German Short FC have to do retrieving stakes and have to do retrieves for callbacks. So when they're called back to do the retrieving portion of it, it's basically the handler, 2 gunners in the field, and the 2 judges. So these dogs now know, okay, handler, 2 shooters, 2 judges. There must be a bird right out in front of me. I'm going to go point it. I'm going to be steady. You guys are going to shoot it, and I'm going to retrieve it to my handler. Well, I went to walk them, and my husband was with me, and my dogs were like bootlickers. They're like, oh, we must be doing a retrieving stake. Somebody put a bird 20 feet out in front of us. And so it took boot leather. It took miles. It took for them their light bulbs to come on and understand the difference. And so that was a great learning curve. Betty Cocker last year was her first year on the prairies. I didn't really hunt her much. She was only like 8 months old, but I did take her to UP, and she got to have grouse exposure and woodcock exposure. Well, I thought she would have done better this year to begin with. And it wasn't until she get on scent that she can just see the light bulb shining brighter and brighter and brighter. So if you ask me, like, people have asked, well, how was your trip out west and to Wisconsin? I said, I was really fortunate for the birds that I harvested, but it was amazing what my dogs learned.
Yeah.
It was amazing what they learned. And I think that we take this for granted. I know I take it, I'm a professional at this, and I take it, all my dogs are going to freaking rock this. But if they don't know how to work a grouse, if they haven't smelled woodcock before, if they haven't, whatever. In fact, this is kind of funny. The first rough grouse that I shot the first day of the trip, it was over my field trial German short hair. We had hunted for about an hour and a half. I had a wild flush right away. I shot it. She was ahead, didn't hit it. I don't know that she had much more contact. And then an hour and a half later, we're walking the road back. She locks up on point for like 2 seconds. And I'm like, oh, and there was Tweety birds on the road 20 feet ahead. And then she just sort of went on and just like flushed the Tweety birds, whatever, didn't chase them. Well, I go, oh, she flashed points, and then she went after the Tweety birds. I know Sarah took one more step. She was pointing a grouse. It was 6 feet off her nose. She didn't know what she was smelling. It flushed. I shot it. I brought her over to it. She went batshit after that. She just was like, this is why we're out here? And
I have a theory on that.
What's that?
When I drive a lot to the different regions, the foliage, the fauna, and what the birds eat and what the different birds smell like. I can be driving through nowhere and then get to close to where we've hunted before, and they know it.
Yes, they can smell it.
Yeah.
They can smell it. Well, I think what I'm trying to explain is that it's really easy to assume that because we have these hunting dogs and they may have done great in one state and on one quarry, one game, or my dogs do great with their field trials, to then think it's going to magically transfer over.
No.
Yeah. And it doesn't work that way. And so, there was elements in me of frustration and like thinking of all my past dogs, how great some of my past dogs have been, my really good dogs, because I seem to keep bringing new crews out, but their learning curve was incredible. And I got my dogs on a lot of bird contacts, and it was incredible. And the same thing happened tonight here in New England. It's opening a woodcock. My 6-year-old lab was great. She knows the score, but Betty Cocker, she's not even 2. I mean, she became a woodcock dog tonight.
There's a big difference between alfalfa and sage and ragweed and everything else that they're
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't necessarily give our dogs enough credit that there's such a learning curve of the different areas that we hunt, and whether it's forests, whether it's prairies, the different conditions and stuff like that. And it's so where I'm going with this too is for everybody, it's really important to be patient and think about every time you have your dogs out, it's training experiences.
Yeah.
It's training experiences.
It might be a hunting trip to us, but it might be a training experience for the dog.
Yeah. Yep.
I can see it, my older dog in his eyes. He's looking at me when we leave the house here. He's looking at me like, okay, which direction are we going this time?
Yeah.
Are we going south? Are we going north? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And so he lets his nose tell him.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate. I mean, I don't even know him. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tech 4. I don't have a name.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was on speaker. My apologies.
Oh, I thought you had a question. Sorry.
We hunt sometimes in our training area. We have a weed called Indian tobacco. It's also called puke weed and Lobella inflata. It stinks. I can smell it 20 feet away. And we were doing some tracking training, and I couldn't get the dogs past it. So what we did there at the end of the afternoon, we took birds and we planted them in the Indian tobacco, and the dogs finally figured it out. Hey, I can smell in there, but it was tough. They really had a hell of a hard time. Most of the dogs just backed away from it. It's that pungent.
It's like when I let my dogs out in the morning and there's a mountain lion out there. They go, I ain't going out there.
Oh my God. Wow.
I'll hold it.
Anybody have any specific questions? I've got plenty of analogies and things I can talk about, but if people have questions, I want to direct it to Jennifer. I love how people get shy.
Don't
So
get
I got a
shy.
question.
Yeah, please.
Chomping of birds on a retrieve. Fresh killed bird typically is the biggest problem. I'm pretty convinced it's related to the excitement of getting that bird in their mouth and it's freshly killed. And I'm not talking mutilating it. I mean, both dogs that have the issue were, got 3s at the invitational and retrieved the bird. So it's not like it's, hugely detrimental to them getting the bird back.
Good question.
But I've asked a number of people. I actually trained with Mike Lardy for the invitational this summer and talked to him about it a little bit. And nobody seems to have any real good, how do you break that excitement you know, get a good solid hold on that bird on the way back.
Sure. It's funny. We were just dealing with this with a Drothar yesterday. So there's rolling a bird, there's being hard with it, there's crunching bones. Are we talking crunching bones, or are we just talking being a little obnoxious, rough with the bird?
Yeah, it's beyond rolling it, but it's definitely not crunching bones.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
it happens. I mean, there's I've had even some of the best dogs will just give a squeeze if it's a quail or a chucker or something like that. So while it can be excitement, it's also a possession thing. And the hardness of a bird is very often done halfway back to you or within range of you where they have to give the bird to you.
Mhm.
So a drill that I would practice with these particular dogs is the moment they pick it up, turn away and turn it into a healing drill instead of a recall drill. And don't take their now again, guys, I'm not looking for avoidance stuff to put band-aids on. I'm not looking to not correct a dog because I'll correct a dog. But usually when you use pressure to deal with noise or mouth issues, it intensifies it. It just does. So what you're trying to do is redirect that the dog, I'm not taking your bird right away. I'm not making about you and me face to face. It now becomes a come along, walk with me drill, carry your prize, and you're just going to walk and you're going to relax. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is just get them to relax a little bit with the bird and not feel so like, I rode in the car this long. I worked this hard for the dog. I worked this hard for the bird. I finally get it. And now I get it in my mouth for 13 seconds and I have to give it to you. And it's predator versus predator. Okay. That's who we are. Dogs are predators. We're predators. So, again, it's often on their return that they'll do it. Most of your hard mouth dogs, when they're about 15 feet in front of you, can start the crunching because it's a possession thing. So, there's been so many tricks. People have tried remote drops and this and that. I just ask them to hold it longer. I'm like, well, we're just going to walk around. I'm going to have you hold it so long, you're going to want to give me the bird versus me take the bird.
On that, when I started training, like I'm unabashedly not apologetic. I hardly train my dogs anymore. I've got some easygoing dogs that I don't have to worry about. But when I was in the game, I took my dogs not through the whole force fetch, but through the trained just to hold and carry.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they had their adult teeth at 6 months, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could just be lucky by being lucky. You know, there's only so many dogs in my life, a lot of them, but I always did the hold and carry when they had their adult teeth. And again, probably most of them probably didn't have a lot of bird contact. But the hold and carry, I felt that the hold and carry, I could, like the Broncos that I had, not the best retrievers in the world, but definitely have retrieving instinct. Definitely not the most chomping bird dogs in the world. But the ones I've had, even the wire hairs I've had, that when I did the hold and carry, I feel like they learned it was classroom retrieving. It was not wild bird retrieving. Now this could have just been I might just got lucky, but I've literally and I shouldn't even say it, but I'm going to say it. I've never had a dog that crunched birds.
Find some wood.
But I also, a lot of those dogs, I didn't take them through the whole force fetch. I just did the hold and carry portion of it.
Well, even
And
putting a dog, go ahead, Keith.
Well, in parallel to that, I haven't force fetched either one of these dogs.
Okay.
And the issue, that same fresh killed bird at my side is not an issue. It's literally on the, like I said, it's literally on the going out, picking it up and bringing it back.
So they want to make sure it's dead.
Yeah, that could.
That's part of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my short hairs was like that. Her initial pummel was to definitely make sure it was dead, and if it was alive, she would usually kill it. Even though she had a very soft mouth, she'd crunch it for a second or kill it, and then deliver it to me very softly.
But the odd part of that is, to me anyway, is both dogs bring ducks back alive in the duck search.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I know you don't get to see it, so it's really hard to,
No,
and it's really
I can
hard to
envision.
explain.
In a beautiful way, again, I'm so fortunate of that so many dogs that get exposed. I mean, my personal one that had the really soft mouth, and she did, she wouldn't bring ducks back alive. She made sure that, we tried to reuse our live ducks, and you'd have to use her at the end. Whereas her mom, I mean, bring back baby robins, she never crunched anything. So I think it can be dog specific. And I think that you have to have elements of standards of what you accept or not. And, this dog didn't break bones. She didn't crunch, but she didn't like to bring a bird back alive. So she just made sure she took, it took its last breath in her mouth, and then she would deliver it kindly. And it's not, in the spaniel world, it's a huge no-no. They cannot be hard mouthed. The spaniel can't be hard mouthed, but we breed these dogs to, attack back.
Well, the last word was attack that.
Attack. You there?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. We breed these dogs with such intestinal fortitude to catch and kill, whether it's, fur and coyotes and rabbits and everything else. I think that that's, an element that's ingrained in them, and it just becomes what your standard is. I know that it can carry over. I'm not a huge fan of having squeaker toys at home, because if they can squeak it, squeal it, and crunch it, they get to practice the kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been using Joe's method now for about a year. I don't know if you saw my dog. His head's this big.
Yeah.
Okay? He puts a whole trucker in his mouth. And if you're lucky, just part of the tail, this much of the tail feather sticks out. But he wasn't crunching them. But he didn't want to give them to me either. So I just turned my back and walked away. Before you know it, he's running in front of me, sitting down, trying to stop me. And I don't stop. I keep going till I figure, okay, he's given it to me long enough. And then he'll sit down in front of me, and I just reach down, and he's pretty glad that he dumps it out of his mouth sideways.
Yeah. But Keith, what you were saying, my last dog, and she was a UT prize one dog, who didn't bring the ducks back alive, and who would, if a chucker was crippled, he would take it out and then deliver it to me. And it wasn't, she was polite with it at my side, but she would kill it at a distance. I just kind of accepted it. It's sometimes the more you try to make a deal of it, like, what's my standards? Well, nothing was unfit for the table. She didn't, crunch meat and stuff like that. She just didn't want him to be still alive.
Yeah. I'm the alive part is part of it. But I still think it's kind of excitement driven. It's kind of like perpetual repositioning almost.
Yep.
It's not really rolling, but it's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What breed do you have?
Short hairs.
Okay.
I mean, Jennifer, could we throw a blanket at it and say, you've heard of the dogs that spin in their kennel or try to get a latch off, or some of that is just genetic, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like as long as
ADD.
it's not damaging the meat, like,
Yeah.
let's just not, let's not overthink it, because
Well, tell Mark Whalen that.
Mark.
I knew we'd get there. Yeah, I love that.
Is that your breeder?
No,
No.
he's a judge.
No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Well, he's in charge of judges, isn't he?
Yeah.
Something like that.
No.
Yeah. Well, apparently the man's had enough dogs to understand that dogs are all different, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
They're all different, but they're all, you know, I hate when people say like, oh, dogs are all different. No, dogs are pretty much the same. There's just some different lanes they live in, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So,
try what you said though,
so
because I think it can be pressure driven, right?
yeah.
You
So,
know,
and then there's some flip sides, but you know, I don't know that it's I don't know that that particularly is pressure driven because usually the pressure driven is on their return, they start crunching it because they're worried they're going to get in trouble. So it becomes a stress. It becomes a stress and they can crunch harder, but it's also an ownership thing. So the fact that you said your dog's running out, doing the kill right there, but then coming back and being all nice at your side, they're not butting heads with you there.
no.
Okay. But an idea that I do have is that go put a bird out, they'll point it, flush it up, kill it. But how about you walk out? I mean, when I did my invitational training, I did so much of this. I mean, my dog maybe got 1 in 10 retrieves. I would walk out, I would get the bird, and I would come back and I would give it to her just because I didn't, you know, working on breaking on the shot and did my different honoring stuff that I did. So I might do a little bit of reverse psychology where he gets to point the bird, you flush it, you shoot it, you go pick it up, you bring it back to him and put it in his mouth. That's one tactic. And another tactic is send him on the retrieve, but stop him right before the bird. And then you walk out, you still pick it up and you hand it to him. So you're now interjecting on the part that he would normally control, which is when he goes to get it, he's so excited. You're now facing yourself in that moment to go, hey, bud, it's you and me. The bird's knocked down. I'm going to let you know that I still control it.
Yeah. So you
I
become
get it.
part of the retrieve then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
that's interesting.
And so one of the things that I was again really was pretty emphatic for me of training for the invitational is that we ultimately did so much bird work over our dogs, and I wanted my dog to make sure that all the retrieves weren't hers. So that's why I walked out and I picked up the different retrieves. And I mean, sometimes we give it to the honor dog, but it became a real luxury for her to be able to get to do the retrieve. But she still got the reward that if she pointed a bird and we shot it, I'd walk out, I'd bring it back, I'd put it right in her mouth. You got to be careful of being too predictable with your training so that if every time they point a bird, you flush it, you shoot it, they get to go do the retrieve, they get pretty high on their horse of getting to own that bird. So just keep throwing them for loops. Hey, sometimes the bird, when it hits the ground, guess what? It's not yours.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense. Thank you.
you got it. Just trying to brainstorm. I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's all dog dependent, you know?
No, but it's certainly worth trying, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, you bore the hell out of these dogs with all the training you do for the invitational, and
Oh my God. I know.
you know,
Yep.
so
When did you
keeping
run the invitational?
my daughter and I both ran it this last year.
Nice. How fun.
So, and they threw a Hail Mary test because we both failed and
Oh,
we're qualified for next year. So we'll
It's a
try
heck
it
of-
again.
It's a heck of a game, isn't it? It's a heck
I
of
ran
a
it
game.
in 2016 in Iowa.
Well, we got her one of those sharpshooter dogs, and when she was 14, and so that was her first dog,
Wow.
and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work for her, but she's also been really dedicated to it. So
That's amazing. I'm super psyched for that. That's super cool. This guy, Dennis, has been hysterical to watch. What are you doing, Dennis?
Yeah, Dennis.
I've been trying to figure out what he's been doing.
I
the whole
know.
time.
He's like cleaning it. I think he's packing for a hunting trip.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
All right.
And I'll tell you something. Dennis's dad is a. There
Me?
it is. What's your NAVDA number?
10.
10. This man has been in it forever.
Wow.
forever.
Wow.
Almost.
Well, almost.
1977.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What breeds? What breeds do you guys have?
Short hairs.
All right.
I was just talking to Norm Prima, and your name came up the other day, and he said his number is 10. I said, yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't know it was that low. But
Yeah.
that's old school shit there. What give us a little, you know what? Give us a little NAVDA history. Like what's what have you seen change since you started NAVDA?
What's changed?
Yeah, what's changed?
You want to start? You want to start with the duck search and utility,
No, not okay.
where we release the duck on shore,
Right.
based it out.
Which is kind of what we do in the Versatile Hunting Dog Federation now. We don't put a bird out at 200 yards. We get a dog onto a bird, see if they can actually track it on the water. No, I just
Yeah, but Jeff Funky and I were on the board at the same time.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
How did you guys lose the duck release at the shore?
It would take too long.
Just
so that
time thing.
We went to throwing it out as far as we could throw it, and then letting it swim for a while. And now we've gone to releasing it from a kayak out in the middle.
Yeah, but how about with the dogs? Like, what have you seen? Have you seen a big difference with the dogs, or is it all? Could you just say no? It's all the same.
No, I think all the breeds have improved from years ago, some more than others. So,
what was your first dog? Was it a short hair?
Yep. From a German couple who weren't necessarily breeding the best dogs, but she was the dog I spent the most time on. So, trying to remember, she's actually my highest scoring dog, but not necessarily highest prizing dog.
183 prize 3.
Something
or 185 like prize 3.
Yeah.
Due to
that was
pointing that day.
That was BC.
And
or BK. BC BK. Before kids, before children.
And I am sure you could verify the things that all my mentors told me. When you got a prize 3 utility dog, you were buying drinks.
Yeah. And then one of our old saying was, prize 3 utility dog is a good dog. Prize 2 utility dog is a better dog, and a prize 1 utility dog is a lucky dog.
I like that. Yeah.
Do you feel the judging standards have changed over the years? Like loosened up?
Well, is that a question for?
I don't know Dennis's dad's name. Dennis's dad?
Bruno. Good Italian name. Or German, but mine happens to be Italian. Distinct enough that I don't have a middle name.
Yep.
So when I fill out forms, I hand them to people and they go, put your middle name down. I don't have one.
Bruno,
What?
back in the day, they couldn't afford middle names.
My dad couldn't think of a second one. So sometimes I think they're a little bit more lenient nowadays, but I don't always see that. Sometimes I shake my head going, why'd you knock that dog? So it can be on other sides of the game, depending on, the different judges and how they're paired together, and, who's willing to argue their point and stand their ground when you get into the judges' discussion.
Yeah, I know when my mentor was Ken Whitney and Dick DeCam, and probably Ken Whitney a little bit more. And he always told me, he said, try to bring this to a hunting situation. Don't try to micro think about it like, ooh, it did this. Ooh, it didn't do this. Try to always bring it to a hunting situation.
Yeah, and its usefulness in a hunting situation.
Right. And I think that's where NAVDA judging has changed, certainly because of the duck search, but you try to put yourself in a hunting situation and you're like, oh, that really was a pretty good job. And then it got to be like, oh, it wasn't perfect. Like, no, that would have been a great job if I was out hunting. And,
and
that's where I think it changed.
And we got to remember that, a 4 is not perfect. A 4 is 75 to 100.
Right, right. And since I've been judging with the Federation, the one thing I've loved is their 10-point system, with also the ability to give a higher number for a performance that sticks out. Where we would be judging a dog and say, you guys a 4? Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm 4. But it would be an 8.
In the very, very early days, you could have a 4H.
Right. You were allowed to give it an H.
Mm-hmm.
What was the H?
For a high, like a high, like
Gotcha.
a 4 high, like
a 4 plus.
Yeah, 4 plus. Like, that was basically what that was a rock solid 4 that all 3 judges were like, fuck yeah, 4H. Yeah.
Wasn't often, but it was available.
Right. And I've seen that with the Federation. And I asked Jeff Funky, I said, well, how do you get the 11 or the 12? And he said he saw a dog go on a drag. For those of you who don't know what a drag is, we drag a dead duck 150 or 200 yards out into a field or into a wood lot. And he saw a dog that was following the track of and there's no nose score in this because it's just, my wife's corgi could find a duck that I dragged through the grass. That's not so there's no nose score in that portion. What it is cooperation and obedience. And he said this dog was following the drag, which would be the scent trail, the duck's on a leash, and it popped the deer up, and it watched the deer run away, and it went back to tracking the duck. Now it's coming back with the duck in its mouth, and it popped up another deer. Never dropped the duck and just looked at the deer run away, and then came back to the owner, and they said, that's a
4H.
that's a H. That's a dog that's like, no, I'm on a task.
I gotta do the right thing.
Right. I don't give a fuck about that deer. I'm coming back to my owner with this duck. But yeah, I wish NAVDA could have kept a few of those old rules.
Yeah. Well, my mentor was John Cagle.
Oh, I met him once up in Canada.
And a couple others.
Yeah.
So,
Where are you guys going hunting?
North Dakota.
Nice. What part of the state?
West Central. Or more central, kind of.
Yep. I was just in Wing 2 weeks ago.
I'd have to look up where that is. We haven't been before.
Okay. It's not too far. It's about 45 minutes before Bismarck.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Middle of the state.
It would be West Central. Yeah, Wing would be
Okay.
West. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys chasing ducks or everything?
Everything. Yep. Ducks, sharp tails, pheasants, huns.
Yeah, that's the best time about North Dakota. When I go, it's early. And in the past, I've gone when it's mid-October, late October. It's like, oh, fuck, I can shoot. I can do everything. I love it.
Dad's been known to shoot a rabbit on every trip we go. Every time we go somewhere, he shoots a rabbit.
Can't miss. That's where I cut my teeth.
That's cool.
Well, they got big ones out there.
Yeah.
Are you shooting jackrabbits, Bruno, or are you shooting cottontails?
Yes.
The first, I guess the answer is yes. Shot them both.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we used to hunt my parents or uncles and that where I started hunting with never had dogs. And most of our hunting was rabbit hunting and a little bit of pheasant for the 3 days in Ontario you could hunt pheasants for. So, or was it 4 days? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that was it. You know, for wild pheasants.
Where are you guys driving from?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
So that's the closest big city you'd recognize. Dennis is a little south of Nashville, and I'm a little north of Nashville.
Okay.
And you're leaving in the morning.
No, we're leaving at lunch.
I got to shoot a sporting clays tournament first, and then,
oh, you poor thing. Got to.
Oh, I know. You know, I got to represent work.
What's the name of the sporting clays range?
Oh, it's just set up by a place at a farm.
Okay.
It's a fundraiser for the Chamber of Commerce. They've been doing it for 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah. They just contract somebody to come with a trailer full of clay machines and set up 12 stations.
That's cool.
Okay. I went to a place there one time. It was pretty cool. I think it was west of Nashville.
Cross Creek Clays?
Or the Nashville Gun Club.
It's been a while. I don't remember.
Yeah, we've got, well, there's one that I go to with a buddy of mine a few times.
There's 3 in Middle Tennessee and 1 in Southern Kentucky.
Yeah, but this Cross Creek Clays he's a retired helicopter pilot. He got tired of the runaround and rigmarole at Nashville Gun Club. So he bought a bunch of property and built his own sport. He's got 5 different courses on his property. He's got a big clubhouse and lounge. He hosts special events, and you can have weddings and stuff there. Several times a year, he hosts not charity shoots, but he lets military come in and shoot for free.
Nice.
You may know of an old friend of mine. He died in a duck blind in South America. Boyce Magley Real Estate in Nashville.
What's the name of that real estate again?
Magley
or Nagley?
Nagley, something like that. Yeah, his name was Boyce. He was in a duck blind in South America, I think Argentina, and he killed a duck and said, "Put that in the record book, boys," and collapsed. What a way to go!
Oh wow!
Yeah, he's liked.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little primer. I got Will Primos coming on probably in November. He wrote he helped write that book with Anthony Metarise. He's out from your area, Jennifer.
Yeah, I know Anthony.
And they wrote a book on basically Anthony wrote a book, a coffee table book about shooting sporting clays, and then he did one for the wing shooter.
Yep.
And, they were on Meat Eater podcast, and I sent Steve's producer, Corinne, who everybody knows I have a crush on, and I said, Corinne, if it wouldn't break any confidentiality rules, could you get me Will's, email information, because he started talking about wing shooting, and he's a gun collector, he's a sporting clays duck hunter, and I said, God, I'd love to have him. I don't want to talk about deer hunting or turkey hunting, but I'd love to have him on. And she said, well, I can't give you his number, but I'll give you his information. I'll give him your information. And a couple of days later, phone rings from a number I don't recognize, which I always, unless it says spam, I answer the number because it's probably a listener or a patron and I said, oh, this is Ron. And he goes, hey, Ron, it's Will Primos. How you doing, buddy? And I was like, oh, shit. So he's going to be coming on probably in November with Anthony and talk about, shooting and I would not ever call myself a bad shot, but I'm probably like most people, I'm a 50-50 shot. I'm surprised at the ones I get, and I'm surprised at the ones I missed.
Yeah.
And I started reading the book, and I was like, and it's just a book. It's basically a book on basics. But when you read it, you're like, yeah, why don't I listen to? And it goes back to dog training, Jennifer. Why don't I listen to the basics? Why?
Like when the gun hits your cheek is when you should pull the trigger.
Right. And you're looking at the bird. You're not
Yeah.
looking at the bear, right? And it goes back to dog training. Why am I thinking so hard about it? Why is this so difficult?
I get that.
It's
I
almost,
resemble that.
I resemble that remark.
Well, I know Anthony from way back in the day because his parents own M&M in New Jersey, and I used to go there for sporting clay tournaments all in my late 20s and early 30s.
Well, I didn't know you were that well connected, Jennifer.
I was engaged to a top sporting clay shooter, but thank God that didn't work out.
Well, let's go into the normal hunting dog podcast Zoom room. Let's talk about ex-wives and ex-husbands.
No, let's not. Let's not at all. Yeah, but that's how I know Anthony.
That's cool.
I did the whole world bit task and world competitions. Like I didn't shoot it. I was engaged to a person that shot at all the world championships.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I did not.
Oh, that reminds me. Remember the Hancocks? I was going to set you up with.
Yeah.
Shows up on the iPad before my phone.
Craig passed away.
Oh, really?
That's why he didn't hook up with you. He was having problems.
Because his son was going to be shooting in Hillsdale, right?
In the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he won the third gold or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of. Vincent.
Yeah. Well, damn it. That explains that.
That's why he didn't.
That's no excuse. That's no excuse for not getting together.
Being dead?
Yeah, being dead.
Does anybody have any questions for Jennifer? Like, don't be afraid. It's like, okay, I got this that doesn't do, because people, you've done a lot of seminars, Jennifer, and it's like all of a sudden everything's closed. Okay, we're done. And then 8 people come up and say, does my dog,
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask a question if you do. If not, we'll just sit here for a few.
Ron, you've been a great friend and you've hosted me on the podcast. I'm really grateful, and these are your patrons. Share my email address and whatever I can do to help. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate your book, The Quiet Queue.
Yep.
I'm looking
Mastering Canine Communication, and then honestly, my puppy book, which came out after it, Lead Don't Follow, The Human Guide to the Puppy Mind. That's a pretty cool book about raising puppies.
And I'm not saying you couldn't get a dog that's 2 years old and have a good time, but all that stuff you do with puppies, I don't want to say whatever the percent is, it's 10% or 30%. The extra percent you could do with the puppy before you go hunting, whether, a little bird exposure, but a lot of everything else you do. When I started off the podcast, we're talking about if you had a high energy dog or what's a lab versus a pointer. It's probably all in general, it's probably all the same.
Yeah.
Just putting that foundation into the dog that you feel pretty confident about, that like, yeah, I'm communicating with my dog. Because there's a lot of people that don't communicate with their dog. They just kind of, they wander in the wilderness. They just, well, that's just the way he is. Her mom was a big runner.
I gotta grab my log. Hang on.
Ron, I've got a quick question for you.
I'm here.
This doesn't have anything to do with that, but whatever happened to that dog those people were looking for that came over when I met up with you in North Dakota?
Oh, the setter guy.
Yeah, I missed the last Zoom room, and it's been bugging me to know what happened.
I'll tell you, I'm gonna have Patrick and Rayhan on from Garmin in November or end of October. And I told him, I said, I have two great collar stories. So we're in North Dakota, and the guy pulled into our driveway. He could see the dogs out. We had to tie out stakes and a couple dogs running loose, and he pulled into our driveway. And real nice guy from Wisconsin. And he said, have you seen a setter running loose? And we're like, no, we haven't, but we'll keep an eye out for him. And of course, then we start talking, and then he actually asked me, he says, hey, could we trade you a bottle of maple syrup for a beer? I'm like, yeah, well, we got, 8 cases of beer in the fridge. You didn't have to give us the syrup, and I ended up giving it to Tom and Susan. So he was hunting about 2 miles from us, and he put 3 dogs on the ground, and he said, my setter is just a little competitive, and he just had to get out in front of the other dogs, and we lost him. And I'm like, I can't picture, because that particular thing has not happened to me. And
especially out there, because you can see for like a mile and a half.
You can see for, depending on
well, depending on the hill,
you can see for 4 miles, right? And now, granted, if there's a little hill in the way, you're not going to see it. So anyway, he said, I put a bucket out in a blanket, or a food bowl in a blanket. And I said, listen, I'll go. I said, I know exactly where you're at. It's a gravel pit. I'll go up there in the morning and check. And went up there in the morning, right at daylight, blew the whistle. I can't remember what the dog's name was. It was like a normal dog's name, like Rosie or something. And I could see a good piece of ground. And so I texted him. I said, went up to the gravel pit, hadn't seen anything. But I also didn't see the food bowl in the blanket, right? And I thought, oh, maybe the guy got it maybe he went back at 10 o'clock at night and the dog was there. And then he texted me, he says, I'm there right now. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I just left the gravel pit. And about an hour later, he calls me up. He says, I found the dog. And from where I am and where the dog was 15 miles. 15 miles.
Holy shit.
Wow.
First thought was, this dog either thought you left him and went back to Wisconsin, because that would be the trajectory, or you have one of the worst dogs that ever existed. And what's funny? I never, because he was my age. If he was a younger guy, I was like, why do you have a tracking collar on the dog? Like it's I never asked him that, but it was found 15 miles away up by Berthold, and it went by some farm, and it was a friendly dog and had a ID collar on it, and he got his dog back. And but it went 15 miles from 1:30.
That's insane.
And you don't know if it went 15 miles that night or if it just wandered all night. You just don't know. I mean, look, we could walk 3 miles. A dog could do 15 miles. That's not, but it's not 15 miles in one direction.
Yeah.
And then I'm up in the UP, and this it kind of broke my heart. I still have his name. I still have his card in my truck. There was a guy that, with all these other dogs and all these other hunters there, he flagged us down, and he had a 13-year-old Brittany. He said, I lost my Brittany. And he says, if you see it, here's my card. And if you have AT&T service on Drummond Island, you can make phone calls. If you got Verizon, you can't, unless you go all the way back to the ferry. And I said, well, hey, I'll keep an eye out for it. And I'm up early before everybody else. I'll run the roads. He goes, I'll be out here all night. And I asked him, I said, why? He was younger than me. I said, why didn't you have a tracking collar on the dog? He goes, I've been hunting her for 13 years. I've never needed one.
Yeah, they can't hear and they get disoriented. It happens.
And then he says, yeah, last year we noticed that she was pretty deaf. I'm like, And then he told me, he says, the real problem is I'm going to have to explain this to my wife and kids. Like, how do you have a wife and kids with an old dog? And I can just picture, I'm married for a long time. My wife would say, are you sure you should take her hunting?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we left the island, I saw him on the way out, and there was no.
You got to follow up with that. Let me know, because I know I've been thinking, you told me that too when we spoke last week, and I hope he found it. That sucks.
I've got his card, and I'll probably actually, it's been almost a week, so I should probably send him an email or a text.
I'll bet the dog turned up. Hopefully someone found it.
I would bet it did. There's no wolves there. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of water, but you're also talking a 13-year-old dog that's deaf.
Yeah.
I mean, they could just be like, well, you know what? I'm just going to lay down and go to sleep, not die, but
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want to pick on Brittany owners, but I've seen now I'm gonna end this with my friend Jennifer told me that Vivi was fat.
Fat.
Fat. She said, why is your dog so fat?
Fat ass.
And I've seen enough Brittany's. I will say that unless it's a field trial, Brittany, I will say that more Brittany's are overweight than other dogs. And I'm thinking that poor dog isn't hungry. It's lost, and it's just going to sit here for days. It can sit here for days on end. You know?
Live off its reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? I've got that card in my dashboard. I'll give that guy a message tomorrow.
Let me know what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we all, I mean, we all love our dogs. We all know that day is going to come, but you just don't want it to come like that.
Yeah.
You know, I felt worse for him than I did with the guy with the setter who ran 15 miles. I have questions in my head about that one, right?
Yeah.
Like, I bet you that dog's run that far before, you know. But anyway. All right. Any last questions for Jennifer?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, happy
Thank
to
you
help
very much.
anybody. It's been an honor, and Ron's turned into a buddy the past year plus, and I'm happy to do this. Happy to do it again, and thanks for your attention.
Yeah,
Hanging out.
I was literally, it sounds funny, but I was like, you know, normally we have about 30 people. And when I sent that out, I'm like, maybe I should have said you were coming on. I think there's like about a dozen people like, oh no, I don't train my dog. I don't want to ask Jennifer anything, because I was kind of shocked that we had a smaller group tonight. But Jennifer, you were very enlightening. And I think, you know,
Thank you.
everything you talked about was
No, these are all.
What's that?
I didn't hear if somebody said something.
I think that's Lori.
I hit unmute and I wasn't trying to. I can barely hear. I'm at the Michigan grouse hunt thing up here, and it's pretty loud. I don't know if you saw Blake and I are both here.
Oh, I didn't see Blake.
Hang on.
I saw Blake. Ron, you got to pay attention more.
Thank you, Evan. Hi, Blake.
So, what's up?
So hang on, I'll show you.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We get our acknowledgement.
Looks like
Coach has been mad because you haven't said hi to us, because we've been sitting here like this for quite a while.
Listening.
We were gonna make it look like we were together and Brian and Tosh were off somewhere.
Well, I mean, who knows? It could happen.
But you should probably tell Jennifer I'm probably usually the only girl on here with all the guys. So
Yeah. Lori is our mainstay woman that comes on and can put up with us.
Way to go, Lori. Woohoo! We got them. We got these curmudgeon guys. We can handle them.
exactly.
Yeah, Jennifer travels the country with a bunch of old farts like me, and she's not afraid of anything, just like you, Lori.
Nope.
I'll have to meet her in person.
I hope so, Lori. That'd be great.
What?
I'm gonna mute it again because we're loud in here because we're drinking.
All right.
Sounds good. All right, that's your last chance. All right, guys. Lori,
Thank you, everybody. I really am grateful for everybody and hanging out and asking questions. Thank you. And it's fun to meet everybody.
and I will give you a last unabashed your book, The Quiet Queue, and the video that's going to come out and accompany it. We kind of touched on it a lot with it. This is not magic, and it's not high science. And I think, Jennifer, you broke it down to like, oh, this is very doable.
Common sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
You know, Rick Smith was a big inspiration, and he wrote the foreword for me for the book. And so I've modernized a lot of his stuff, his teachings that I've learned, you know, with a bunch of his support. And yeah, it's just spreading things in different wording and messages that might relate to a different group of people. And, you know, nothing is brand new and recreated. It's, you know, kind of same old in different ways. So it was a fun project, and the video series, I got to meet about it this past Tuesday and see some preliminary stuff, and it's fun. So looking forward to it all.
Well, let me know when it all gets put together, because I'll have you back on again. And
thank you.
I could learn a thing or two, because
Yeah. I'll get that Vivi out. I'm gonna get Vivi for you. I'll get her
oh,
studied for you.
Vivi's the best. You have the best cocker name, but
Betty.
I got the best cocker.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you.
What's that?
The rest of the season, where are you going?
Oh, well, Jennifer's gonna be hanging out east probably.
Yeah, I mean, our woodcock season just opened today. It's open through December. That's the only wild bird that we get in Connecticut, upland bird. I have a trip for my artistry field business at Pine Hill Plantation in November, so I'll do that for 3 days. I might do a trip to Maine or New York or Vermont for more grouse and woodcock. But my preliminary trip was that 3-week trip I was just on with North Dakota and then Wisconsin. Interestingly enough, I helped teach a retriever seminar. I was a guest at Kevin Sheff's retriever seminar in Minnesota back in September. And I met a gal from Wyoming. They have Nova Scotia duck-tolling retrievers, and she's a wildlife biologist. Her and her husband are both Wyoming wildlife biologists from Casper, and I got an invite. And I mean, they have dusky grouse, rough grouse, sage grouse, sharp-tailed grouse, pheasants, and I'm just like, yeah, what's that? You want to go?
Yeah.
You want to go? So
Next year.
I'm already planning next year. I think I'm gonna make it a 6-week trip. I'm gonna start it like mid-September. I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna do Wyoming. Then I'd like to hunt Montana. Then we'll do our trip with Mike and the group in North Dakota, and then either Wisconsin or UP, Michigan.
Oh God, hit me up.
If you get a problem with sage, have Ron give you my contact information. My daughter lives in southwest Wyoming.
Okay.
Sage grouse galore.
Really? You know, I only want to shoot one. I'd love to look at it, see it in hand. That's it. I don't,
Well,
you
you got
know.
to get a boomer. So
Oh,
let them flush.
I got my boomers. I got 2 boomers.
Wow.
Cool.
But I want to.
Ron Bame is right.
Ron
Bame is right.
All right. Yeah. No, Jennifer, let me know if you're going to Wyoming next year. I would love to.
Would you go? Would you be my hunting date?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just gonna have to leave your husband and my wife out of it. Just it's very. I'm going to tell you guys, I shouldn't even say this. First time Jennifer sent me a picture, she says, hey, I can't remember where you were. And she took a selfie sleeping in the back of her truck with her dog laying on her. And I'm like, I know this girl is a hunting son of a bitch, because she's sleeping in the back of her 4-door pickup truck with a dog laying on her. And she's like, good morning.
Yeah, I know. Because I won't leave, I drive a big chassis mount with like 8 dogs in it, the stainless steel dog truck, and I'm not going to go stay at a hotel with all my guns, my gear, my dogs in the truck. So I just camp with them till I get to my destination.
You gird out. You're one of a kind, girl.
Okay, Ron, I'm going to press you on an old story.
Okay.
Southern Arizona.
Oh, you want me to come to Southern? I was just up with Lance Vernum and Traverse. He wants me to come down there. You want me to come? All right. What am I going to experience for that kind of a drive?
Snakes.
So thank you,
Fly.
Kevin.
No snakes. No.
I told you. I told
that's
you.
What Ron is thinking, though.
I told you if you would fly, I'd pick you up. But here's the deal. I want to promise you. When you ever do go, I want to be involved and drive you down right on the borderline.
Ooh.
And have cocktails afterwards.
Wow, that's good.
And tell me what you think. It is so
Hey, Ron, you want to go?
Oh, see, now you're going to goad me into this. And
I'll be the driver.
Jennifer's
Dave,
going to make it happen.
Dave, I've offered to drive my ass down from Alberta to pick Ron up and then drive his ass down to Arizona. He still won't.
Down to Sonoyta. And we'll go to Patagonia for breakfast. Very politely.
Take him to Loquillo.
There he is.
We'll take him to Loquillo.
Okay, have some coins in your pocket, Ron, to give to the what hell do you call that?
I got 7 bottle caps. Is that good?
That'll get you something on the border.
When I was a kid, we could go to the Pepsi-O-Rama movies at Ford City with 6 Pepsi bottle caps. If that works, I got 6 Blue Moon bottle caps and 1 Shiner box.
No, there's a Christian shrine down there with a whole little thing, and you put your coins down there, and it's really you gotta go.
What time of the year do you hunt Arizona?
Late December.
December.
And I'll tell you what, I'll throw a lasso
December
on
3rd
Tyler.
and goes to February 14th.
See, Jennifer goes to Florida, Georgia at that time of the year.
January, February, March.
She can jump over. Tyler Webster, we'll make him be our guide.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Ron, I would hop over to hunt with you, man.
There you go, buddy. Challenge.
This is like peer pressure in 7th grade.
My offer still stands. I will drive from Alberta to Michigan and pick you up.
All right.
Hey, Ron, you don't even have to pull a trigger. I don't know how to say it. The countryside, when you get about 15 miles from the border, 20 miles, it changes and there's no more cactus. It looks like you're in Montana.
Now that sounds more attractive.
What's the temperature typically, Dave? Like around that time of year?
It's 30 in the morning and 60 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second. I have to convert that because you guys are weird and use
Fahrenheit. Oh, you and your Celsius.
Yeah, like the rest of the world, Ron.
Like the other.
Just subtract 30.
Like the other 5 continents.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll go to Gathering Grounds for breakfast in Patagonia.
Dave, do you winter
biscuits
down there?
and gravy around.
I'm sorry.
Dave, do you winter down there?
No, I winter in South Texas, down Brownsville, South Padre Island.
Okay.
But I drive to go to Arizona. I love the border down there. It's so beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous.
We lost Ron. He fell off his stool. He was so excited about hunting in Arizona.
He tried to open the fridge and he fell down.
He had to go find the sink.
But Tyler hunts down there, and everyone. Monty,
Ron,
Monty has a place in Patagonia.
I live there. I have a place in outside of Patagonia that I bought to hunt Mearns quail.
Wow.
Yep.
It's and it's 20 acres, and I don't fence it off because there's a big difference between what you own and what you claim.
Yeah.
Jennifer's going to shame me into this.
Yeah, I totally am.
Give it to him. Give it to him.
Totally am. Don't be a loser. Everyone's doing it. We're all going to go hunt quail.
Come on, hanky panky. Let's go.
Oh God. Okay. I will look. I will seriously look into it. Now, I would definitely fly. I'm not driving there.
I said you don't have to drive. I said I would drive you down.
I know, but that's really out of the way to come from Alberta to Michigan.
He doesn't want to invest the time.
Okay.
Exactly.
The clock is tick-tocking away.
Evan, you got to realize
rentals
you come
and
down to
everything.
Michigan to pick me up. That means I'm the designated driver drinker the rest of the way to Arizona. So I'll fly.
I barely drink. I think most of the time I drink is when I'm on here.
Yeah, but I think that Ron he's not a good non-driver. I think that's what he was trying to say. He's a control freak.
No,
yeah, it might be. I don't make it down there.
I like to know. I think I'm better at drinking and driving than most people, so I'd rather be the driver.
Oh, wait a minute. Evan
That
didn't
makes
actually
perfect
say
sense.
Evan didn't actually say you were going to ride in the front of the truck.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's true.
I've got a kennel that's too big for my Springer. Somebody can ride in it.
I think Lori's going to jump in on this pretty quick if she's not teaching.
What was that I should jump in on?
Trip to Arizona, Lori?
I substitute teach. I can go anywhere I want, whenever I want. So I'm there.
I'm not
as
doing.
long as it's not when I'm baiting bears.
Well,
Hey, Ron, there's a reason why Big T is going down there.
I'm sure there is.
He does not call anything, but there's a reason he's going down there.
When is Big T going down?
It's because of the beauty of the southern.
No. When is he going?
I think he goes like when's Mearns open? Late December?
December 3rd.
Something like that.
So
Well,
Ron, I would totally go in December, Ron.
Would you fly down or would you drive that monster?
No, I mean, hopefully people would have dogs. I would fly from Connecticut. I'm not freaking driving from Connecticut to Arizona, then a month later driving back down to Florida. Not happening.
All right. Well,
just don't forget I haul horses and dogs down to North Florida, Georgia.
I mean, at that time of year, I'm living at my house in Texas, and it's a 14-hour drive.
December 3rd might be hard. Brian is leaving December, I think, 6th or 7th for the flush hunt.
Oh, he's doing that with Travis.
Yeah, I was able to get him a spot with the hunt, so he's leaving and doing that. So actually, he'll be gone for my birthday and our anniversary. So it's like, where am I going to go party?
Well, Lori, my birthday's December 1st, so why don't you go and we'll all go to down to Arizona for early December.
Oh boy!
Well, because the flush hunt is they do it for the dog that passed away, and we lost our setter that was the dog that taught us how to hunt.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he's going. I can't do that.
All right.
All right. We'll you know what? We're not going to say no. How's that? We're not going to say no.
Okay.
I just got to
before you go, just because we're talking about trips, what's the latest with Virginia?
Well, we're not supposed to talk about that because it should be open to all new patrons, but I think I want all my old patrons coming, so we'll dial that in.
What are you doing Hey Ron, what are you doing in Virginia?
We're gonna have a Patreon dove hunt at my house in Virginia. Now that would be September, so that would be far for you to drive.
September what?
Well, the opener is always the first Monday in September or the first Saturday in September, depending on how Saturdays and Mondays fall, but beginning of September.
Okay, I might just have to have Brian bait, and I'll come down and go dove hunting.
Did you even shoot a dove? Do you think you could hit one?
I've hit woodcock and grouse.
Have you ever hit a dove?
I have. We can't hunt them here. No.
I was in Nebraska in September because Mike Lardy and I did that hunt with Tommy Rice off horseback hunting prairie chickens, and it was prairie chickens in the morning and dove in the afternoon. And I was hunting dove and weed. It's all weed plants down there, and I'm sitting. The weed plants was my camouflage.
What type of horses do you ride?
Tennessee walkers.
Cool.
Horse.
Gated horses.
I'm a rodeo freak.
Okay, cool.
Well, I had Tennessee walkers back in the day, and then I found out I was afraid of horses, so I'm not a horse person.
Okay, I'm good to let you go, Ron.
All right, guys, girls, thank you. Jennifer, thank you.
Hey, I love you guys more.
Well,
He's like my grandson.
line.
He does that and then goes click.
I love you guys more.
No, Ron
was right. Ron Payne was right.
Ron, if you want to do the Arizona thing, I got to know now because lodging is critical.
Well, wait, can't I go to Monty's house?
You can if you want to stay in my travel trailer.
I want a king size bed with 4 pillows.
You need to book tomorrow.
Okay, does it have to be indoors?
No, just a king size bed with 4 pillows. All right. All right, you hooligans. We'll get together and we'll get Jennifer. You might just have to be a regular on here in November.
Oh, I'm on, man. I'm on. What does it take to be a patron? Like $5? I'll join.
$5.
Ron.
That's it. $5. You're a regular.
Yeah. I'll send you the $5.
I love you guys. I love you girls. I love you girls more. Mwah.
Bye, guys.